The pitch hit in the air to center field. That one carrying back. Pages onto the track, turns around, watches it fly. Goodbye. Christian Yelich, dead center, 2-run home run.
A 1. Fly ball out to right. Racing back is Hernandez at the track wall. It is gone. Eric Haas, first home run as a Brewer. It's a 2-run shot, and the Brewers are up 4-0.
Pitch drilled deep left field. Way back goes Vargas. Onto the track. Vargas right at the fence. Back she goes. Goodbye. Blake Perkins. It's the 3rd home run of the afternoon for the Crew.
2-2. This is lined into right center field. That's going to get down for a base hit. It's going to roll all the way to the wall. Off to the races for Yelich. Chugging around third, headed for home is Haas. Here's the throw to the plate. It is not in time. It's an RBI double for Christian Yelich.
Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
I just got 3 things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine!
Man, it seems like we were just here.
Okay, no, it doesn't.
Oh, no.
I'm so messed up right now.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome in on a Monday to kick off a busy week. We're live. We're local. I can't believe it's July 8th. I can't believe we're back. It seems like we were just here on Friday. Wait a minute. We were.
I'm so confused.
Yeah, I really think
a few of us hardy and faithful were here.
You know my quest when I run for public office, if I have the power. Never again will the 4th of July be on a Thursday. So whoever did the calendar, and I'm not sure who you are, and I've got a set of skills where I'll be able to find you because I got Google. You're diabolical because it has thrown me completely off because we were off on Thursday because there was a holiday on a Thursday. We worked on Friday, not complaining. We had a lot of fun, but then I'm just screwed for the weekend. I'm like, I don't know what day it is, but it is now Monday.
And then even on Friday,
look at that.
I felt like the Wednesday show before we adjourned for the one-day holiday was a month ago.
Yeah, and then
it's Monday.
Then I'm really so there's a lot of stuff going on that we're going to discuss today. We got police are involved in Lincoln. It's not good. But can we describe and maybe break through and have a discussion about, and unfortunately, the hurricane that was in the Gulf has made landfall as a Category 1. Now, it was not as severe as it was when it was making its way around Jamaica and Cancun and all of that kind of stuff. But how would you guys pronounce it?
I think Burl, yeah.
Burl, Milton Berle.
Okay.
Because I know a Verl spells
Excuse
it exact. A guy named Verl spells the exact same way, but where the B is, there's the V.
I imagine Verl's what, 22?
16, wearing 4-inch shorts.
Is there a
socks
better chance that Verl is 80 or 22? Poll question.
80.
Yeah.
You would be very, very close.
Verl is a 4-star athlete that goes to an Elkhorn school.
Verl,
very cool.
Verl's making an announcement this week.
Lots of friends. Frosted tips.
But I look at it, and I've gone through a couple of hurricanes. I was telling you guys a story the other day. Is like when you go through a hurricane and it unfortunately does some damage in your area, you want it to be known, like a name, like Ian, Charlie, Hugo,
Bob,
but Burl.
Yeah.
Not. I don't want Barrel to come through and look at the spelling and go, huh?
Burl barrels. Texas.
We got Barrel. I think people are pronouncing it incorrectly. I think it's Burl.
I think it's Burl too.
But they like to say barrel, and I don't think that's good for a hurricane when you say Hurricane Barrel is coming towards you. I mean, Burl is like, okay. When you say barrel.
Are these the national people or the Texans?
Yeah. No,
tropical storms or hurricanes or both, because I know one can lead into the other. They should not need a pronunciation guy that comes with it.
Unless they have an SID.
Yeah.
I'd like to be, of course, in my next life, I'd like to be in charge of naming horses and hurricanes.
Work at the Hurricane Center.
You think you can find that on LinkedIn?
Oh yeah.
I can
Hell,
look.
you could probably major in it now.
By the way, shout out to my friends that are in town that work at LinkedIn. Have you guys seen their facility over off of Pacific, like by Boys Town?
I haven't actually gone inside it.
Wow.
But yes.
I think I know
exterior.
I almost want to go work there. They got like a cool lunchroom and they got like really nice offices. They got a lot of perks for people that worked at LinkedIn. You know, people are surprised at how like a big presence. Well, two things. One, that LinkedIn still exists. I don't know if you guys use LinkedIn.
I
ever
have
since
one.
I switched emails, like personal emails,
Yeah.
I've been locked out for a very long time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you only use LinkedIn if you work at 1620 The Zone and you're looking for a new job.
Indeed.
And you put on LinkedIn
I've heard about this.
that you're looking for a new job. But yeah, LinkedIn has a presence in Omaha. I was over I was on their campus on Friday. It's really, really nice. Like we're like, whoa, this is, I feel like we're out in, Google land out in California.
Do they have a bar?
Well, they start a
It
sports
looks
radio
like-
station.
So they have a really, really nice, I think it's like a lot of perks for the people that work there.
Yeah.
They got charging stations in the parking lot.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. Innovative, up with the times.
Yeah.
That's good.
Not sure how I got off on LinkedIn, but so
How did
this
that happen?
this weekend, at what point this weekend did you guys say, you know what? We could really use some football right now, and I'm just not in the mood to watch Casey Sales play in the CFL last night.
Friday night, I guess.
I'm
Yeah.
always ready.
Yeah, Friday night was probably about that. Although, again, if you would have told me I'd still be interested in Cleveland week
Like
before
the
the
city?
All-Star break, the Guards, formerly known as the Indians, I would have said, wow, that would be very, very good. And here I am.
Yeah, you didn't have a great week, but you still got a banger of a record.
Mm-hmm.
And the Twins and the Royals can't make up any ground.
Good come from behind victory yesterday too. Little man and I were solo from yesterday through tomorrow, and so
Whoa.
he was forced to watch some Cleveland baseball from inning 4s through 9.
Okay, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, and I mean, he was quiet. It was almost like when he's watching his iPad. He was quiet for a while watching it, and he saw the Naylor home run to put him up ahead, and he wondered why Daddy got so
Hey,
excited. I said, Bo Naylor.
Sounds like a youngster that's going to turn into a Bobby Witt Jr. fan.
Oh, see, that's the problem because he's got older influences in the neighborhood that are all big Royals fans and all big Bobby Witt fans.
That is not a bad choice to have.
Yeah.
As he's one of the 4 Royals that made the All-Star game. The reserves pitchers were announced yesterday. We will get into that because there is an Omaha connection, not just with Alec Boehm, who will be in the Home Run Derby, which is kind of odd. He was in the Home Run Derby in 2015 as a high schooler when the Storm Chasers hosted the AAA All-Star game. He's not really a guy that hits a lot of Titanic blasts,
Right.
but good on him for opting into the Home Run Derby. Pete Alonso can't quit the Home Run Derby, so the Polar Bear has joined.
Anti-LeBron.
But All-Star game is next week. But I found myself probably every weekend in the offseason since the Chiefs won the Super Bowl of going, you know what? How many more days until we gather around a television on Saturday and Sunday and just watch football for 9 hours? When is that going to happen? Well,
Do you know exact amount of days?
I do not. I
Okay.
know the NFL is 9 weeks away.
Yeah, that's true. For Nebraska, it's 54 days.
Okay. So high school football around here is pushed back because the state championship games, like Thanksgiving is later this year.
Mm-hmm.
So the state championship games are like the last week of November. So high school football, usually when the Nebraska season starts or week 1 of college football, that is week 2 of the high school season. It's different this year.
Yeah, that's right, because it's always been week 0,
Mhm.
which Nebraska obviously was playing in
Yeah.
for a couple of years, and then that was always also the first weekend of high school football.
All right, so maybe you were at 5:01, we're clamoring, God, I wish football would get here. Yeah, it was quite an interesting Friday. It's been an offseason where the focus has been on what Nebraska could do, and now the focus becomes just briefly. I say just briefly. You guys may disagree, because the swiftness of in and out was handled very professionally, but there is never, ever anything good that goes into a holiday weekend 5 p.m. news dump. That is not a good sign whatsoever. And that news dump included a guy who is extremely with his players, who is held in high regard by his boss and Matt Rule, almost treating Evan Cooper like a son. He's been with him for a long time. Let me think here. Let me do the math real quick. Has Evan Cooper been with Matt Rule longer than Matt Rule has had his oldest son?
Ooh.
I mean,
Wow.
So the
It's
connection, and this one probably hurt, but Evan Cooper, in a forced resignation, resigned, or it was put out by Pete Thamel. I don't think it's been ever confirmed. Well, yeah, maybe it has been
through a spokesperson.
Yeah, but there's been no release, and I don't think there'll be a release. But there is nothing good that comes with a 5 p.m. holiday weekend Friday news dump, and it is unfortunate that a guy that a lot of us have gotten to know that just will not be part of Nebraska football. And for the second straight year, Matt Rule makes a change on his staff late. Now, John Butler is the name that has been attached to the opening. It's not official as of 6:18 this morning. But what surprised you guys more, the announcement or the swiftness?
I would say the swiftness, from the fact of, okay, then clearly this was something that wasn't all of a sudden abrupt on, Thursday night and having to get parties together and then have the forced resignation on Friday. So this was obviously something that, with the ability to pivot so quickly, obviously there was somebody on the radar. It wasn't as if there was a announcement on Friday because this all of a sudden was a brand new development that all of a sudden the coaching staff, Matt Rule, is all of a sudden identifying someone within the hours to be able to find a guy like John Butler, who has a pretty impressive list of credentials, Big Ten experience as well. So the swiftness of it, after I heard about the resignation and trying to find out more about what was going on, it became very clear within hours, really when you woke up Saturday, that, hey, there's somebody that is already now on the radar, and now we're just kind of waiting for that to become official with John Butler, that made you realize, okay, this is something that had been probably in the works and something they knew they were going to have to do at some point here very soon.
So I love a great quote out there. And this is a quote I've used before. A calm mind can handle any situation. So you have a head football coach who is a calm mind and can handle any situation. And we know that things around Nebraska football are not calm at all. Even in the good times when things were happening and people were winning and we were celebrating championships and we were getting naked on Dodge Street.
Whoa.
There was still
chilly.
It was still kind of, but a calm mind can handle any situation. Remember that, boys, as you go through the day. That's a little Sharpie TED Talk for you. Remember that theme. But when you have a head coach who has a calm mind and has a plan, and I believe this dismissal, which was a resignation, is not easy to handle, but it's probably one of those things. And I said on a different show on Saturday, let me try and put together a little bit of the timeline. I got a weird DM from somebody in the recruiting business, not locally, but nationally, that we've had on the show. And he DM'd me on Tuesday and he said, why is Nebraska looking for a defensive back coach? And my response was, an analyst? Because July 1 had just happened. And I thought, okay,
right, maybe
they're looking to expand in that area where they really don't have anybody right now that they could promote from within.
Right.
Like if there was an opening. And I said, analyst. And then they said, no, I don't think it's an analyst. And I said, for Cooper's job. And he never responded to me. And I didn't really think much of it until Friday. And I'm like, okay, so this is probably a situation that Matt Rule addressed internally, holds his players to a high standard, holds his coaches to a higher standard, and of course himself to the highest standard. And when, sometimes you can't work through things where the standard is not met, you have to move on. And so this appears to be that this has been known. Whether, hey, we might have to make a change here. Mm-hmm. So I've got to already, with my network, my extensive network, start thinking ahead of who is out there that would fit exactly what we need. Because I'm not going to let anything in the offseason derail the guys in that room that are fighting and clawing during the summer to put a product on the field that we can be proud of and they can be proud of and we can be successful. So who's that guy thinking, well, worst case scenario, I'm going to lose Coop. And it's going to sting because that's my guy. But you have a plan you have a network, you have availability, and when something like this becomes official, you're already prepared. Again, I use that phrase, a calm mind can handle any situation. I'm disappointed because I've gotten to know Coach Cooper, and I think he's a really good talent evaluator. I think he's a good recruiter in terms of building relationships. And I mean, you can't overlook and go, you're right, John Butler's got a impressive resume, but go, oh, Nebraska upgraded, here we go, move on. It stings a little bit, but this probably internally was not a surprise at all.
Right. And that's what more than anything led me to believe, with all of a sudden attaching somebody that most likely will be taking over that spot, the ability to pivot that quickly. And we forget, and maybe we don't forget, we were reminded, I guess, of this too, of all of a sudden having to quickly pivot. Now, they did so internally when it came to the situation with Bob Wagner, even closer to before the start of fall camp. So unfortunately, Matt Rule, and at some point, if you coach long enough, you're going to have these moments. But I think you're right, though, as far as how do you handle those situations, I think tells a lot about your overall ability as a leader of a program to step back, big picture it, and be able to not react in a frantic way, and all of a sudden start to look at, okay, what the heck are we going to do? And you're trying to figure out, okay, am I more focused on damage control here, or am I more focused on making sure that, hey, this sucks, and I'm sure that's been acknowledged internally to the guys that were under Evan Cooper, especially the staff too. I mean, that's the other thing too. It's, you think first and foremost about the defensive backs and really the entire team, that it wasn't just the defensive backs that Evan Cooper had a relationship with. It's an entire team. But
I think you could just say he's part of the Nebraska football family.
Absolutely. And I think families, that probably the one time that you can hear people throw that around with football programs and coaching staffs all the time. But I think that's the one thing that we've learned, especially when we talk to all the recruiting analysts, when we talk to younger players, and you ask them what stood out the most about their first impression about Nebraska and the coaching staff, is very family oriented. And so obviously this hurts the entire team. I mean, it can't not hurt from that standpoint. But as a leader, you acknowledge it. You sympathize with how young men are feeling about that, but you also say, okay, we are men. We do have to move on with this thing. We've got a season in front of us that could be a very good season for everybody involved. So how do I put them in the best position possible to succeed, to not miss a beat, and maybe in some degree, if we can, elevate even that position? Yeah, this is where you mentioned resources that you have, also internal resources too. I mean, if Sean Padden was one of the guys that is that link to a John Butler, you're using him to be able to help you out, or at least a suggestion of, hey, here's a guy that I know very well, guy that's available. However you come to that conclusion, you're able to take that story internally and say, I got you guys. This sucks, but here's what we're going to do. And then to the public, that's like, you got to be kidding me again. And that was the first thing we saw Friday. It was like, oh my God, here we go again. But how you are able to change that narrative within 24 hours of, yeah, this sucks, but we do have someone who is very interested in this particular football program that left something pretty significant a year back. And this is how we're going to move forward. Not so bad. So that can calm things a little bit, especially as we're in that time of the year.
I think Rule does something. And then this show, over the last couple of days, it was like the good, the bad, and, it's Nebraska football. Everything that went on from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because it culminated with yesterday of getting our Jimmys rustled about a Twitter account from a football coach who may have been trolling y'all in Terrence Knight.
Right.
But they're so damn, you know what? The one thing that we've done really good in the last year and a half is eliminate some drama. And then drama came back, especially yesterday with, also Terrence Knight. You got to read the room a little bit. A lot of things going on.
Right.
You change some stuff on your Twitter, and, people scrub social media. It's not just a Nebraska thing. It's like anybody that takes pictures off their Instagram of the team they're playing for, we're like, he's gone.
Yep.
Okay, so
he's playing hardball. Got
to read the room a little bit, even if you were trolling. If you were trolling, hey, that's an A+, because, man, you set the world ablaze yesterday for about a good 6 hours.
But you're right. It's timing probably not great.
You got to read the room. So this weekend was kind of like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay. You lose somebody that is very successful and you're like, God, it's not football performance related. And then the good is you have a guy that is in charge that is a CEO. This is what CEOs do. They are forward thinkers. They don't let distractions become wrecking balls. And they always have a plan for everything. And we've clearly seen, whether it be with Bob Wagner or in this situation, Rule's always thinking ahead and he has a plan. Mm-hmm. That's the mark of a CEO. I think it also showed you he's got a commitment. And I've reiterated this point, and you can see it in his body language and things he says. He has an obligation to the people that follow that program to win. Not only his boss, who said, man, there's a lot that goes into if you can win this year, but him personally, he wants to win. But most importantly, he wants his players to get to success. So they are extremely confident internally on what they have and where they're going. I mean, they're not going to talk it. You won't hear any billboard stuff in Indianapolis in a couple of weeks, but internally, they love where they are at. Now, this is a loss, but it can only be a loss if you let it be a loss. Yep. But that's where you have a strong culture of players that say, not today, my friend. One person may step outside of the family, but we are a family and we've got to move forward. And that's why the quote that was shared by Isaac Gifford, the slaughterhouse of failure is not my destiny, it will persist until I succeed. So listen to the words in that and don't go, oh man, he's like down on Coop. That is a quote that is used in the defensive back room, and it is a quote that is used on defense. So two things. One, they're not going to let this derail what they've already put into this upcoming season. And another thing, Isaac Gifford does not have to worry about getting rid of his single-digit number. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a guy that stepped up right away, because when you tweet that out and the whole world in Husker Nation appears to be ablaze, a guy's going, we got it. We got it. And it's the guys in that room that will move forward, and they'll show up this morning, actually right now, for summer conditioning, and it's just Monday and a day closer to camp. And they move on, and the program moves on. And that's a sign of a CEO where it doesn't, think about it. Let's be honest. This happens with Scott. Scott didn't have the tools in the toolbox to handle a situation like this. This would have lingered for a while, and it would have been very disruptive. Mm-hmm. But if you have good communication skills with young people, older people, and the people you're in charge of, then you can move forward quicker than maybe you would in a situation like this. So the swiftness was, I don't know. I think disappointed in the dismissal, disappointed in a resignation, but the swiftness shows you they got the right guy in charge for what currently is Nebraska football.
Yeah. It's interesting you put it that way with the Isaac Gifford tweet, because a lot of the projections for this year's team, when they talk about the defense, starts with being able to retain Tony White, being able to have a lot of guys back that either started or played significant roles for that defense. And obviously Evan Cooper was a part of that too. But this is where I wondered, I found myself doing this over the weekend, not just Isaac Gifford, but guys like Javen Wright, guys like Tommy Hill, guys like Ty Robinson, guys like Nash Hutmacher, who've been with this program, who have seen a little bit of drama, whether it's been their own position, whether it's been coaching changes, staff changes, and the fact that you had a handful of guys that made that commitment to return and to try to make this thing even better than what it was a year ago. And hey, only time will tell if that's the case, but you go through something like that with a significant piece of your defense. And there's the, how's this going to affect us on the field, but also how's this going to affect us just from a relationship standpoint with a guy that was very, very well liked amongst that group. That I also wonder, you bring up Scott Frost, and I think you're right. I think we all know how that would probably go. Hell, that would probably be a big story in Big Ten Media Days of, hey, when are you guys making that replacement?
This isn't a football thing. Now, I'm not poo-pooing. You lose a guy like Evan Cooper a month from camp, there's the continuity factor. There is the familiarity with guys. I mean, remember, you have a large defensive back room. You have a lot of young guys, and most of those guys he recruited. Not saying that they're going to turn on a new defensive back coach, but there is that familiarity. There's that comfortability that when things aren't going well at home or on campus, you can go to your position coach because you know him and you're speaking the same language and he understands you because he was in your living room 6 months earlier. So you can't overlook the continuity part. But what this weekend shows, and also social media activity from the head man, is this is what a CEO does of a Fortune 500 company. How they handle situations that could turn upside down. They turn that trending arrow headed north. Because you're not going to let anything knock you off your path. I mean, you can't say all the things that you have and then all of a sudden go, whoa, woe is me. What the hell are we going to do? Oh, UTEP, that game all of a sudden, I would drop that line to about a touchdown favorite. No, life moves on. Man, you got to keep it moving. We all have hiccups. We all have disappointments, but you got to keep it moving. And that's what CEOs do in a business. And that's kind of how I think Rule handled the situation this weekend.
The experience factor with the guys I named too. And this is where it also couples with Matt Rule setting that type of tone. And I think that tone was set a year ago. I think you always had guys that have that ability to either lead or to have that strong veteran presence with the experiences that they go through both on and off the field. And that's the lucky thing about this defense right now. But I think that all that ability to do what I think these guys are really going to be forced to, but I think will do successfully, like, again, using the Isaac Gifford tweet just as an example of saying, hey, I mean, he's not saying this, but essentially he is setting the tone for the entire defense on how they feel and how they're going to move forward. You need the right person above you setting that tone. And so you could have a handful of leaders and leadership qualities in a locker room, but if you don't have the guy setting that tone or the culture that he instills to set that tone, those guys aren't going to have the same type of ability or probably feel empowered as much as they should be in this moment to be the leaders, to be the ones that say, hey, we trust the coaches are going to make the right decision on who to get in here, but this is on us. This means too much to us to let something like that derail us.
That's the shift that they have been looking for, is a player-led team. You know, when you arrive and coaches and players are trying to figure each other out, it can be more of a coach-led team. But look, at the best programs out there are when they can turn it over to the players, and they just spin the wheel, and it's older guys to younger guys to older guys, and the coaches are there. But it's a player-led culture that when you walk into the program, there's an expectation of you, and the coaches don't have to be looking over your shoulder or beating on you all the time. They just let you kind of run the program if they trust you. You know, you can't just say, hey, players run the program, and all of a sudden it turns into an asylum. Okay, you have to trust the players. And in this case, I think Rule trusts himself to handle a situation like this, and he separates it from his football team, knowing that the football team will be able to handle it because of guys that you just mentioned that are a little bit older.
100%.
So it was the good, the bad, and the ugly. We haven't had one of these weekends in a while. Gosh, I missed it.
There's been a lot of.
I missed it, man.
Did you?
Man, there was too much good vibes from Phil Steele out there.
There's been a lot of bad and ugly with moments like this, and very little good that's come out of it. So I'm glad we could at least lump all three of them in there. And again, I think these next couple of weeks, the way that even if it's addressed, the way that everything is addressed with this team when we finally get to hear from the players. But I'd be shocked if you would hear anything different than how we're laying it out amongst these guys. Does it hurt them? Absolutely it does. But you've got a strong veteran presence really in that entire locker room, both offensively, defensively, and especially on that defensive side, taking their cues from a guy that has empowered them to be those types of leaders. You talk about a player-led team. And you're right. That can sometimes not always be the best thing, but when coaches are not having to deal with internal matters amongst the roster, if someone's not pulling their weight, whatever the case might be, and it doesn't even get to the coach because the players have taken care of it, that's when you know you have something really strong. So in moments like this, whether it's a tough moment in the third quarter of a football game or something during the offseason, this is where you look at that as a major, major positive.
Rule's done a good job of blocking out the noise. Now, because there's noise. I mean, there's off the field people of his staff that no longer work there. But he's done a good job of blocking the noise and focusing on football and keeping the train moving. There's a lot more, and we'll get into John Butler and what he could bring if he is hired. A very interesting resume. He almost is like an older version of Evan Cooper. I'll explain what I mean by that. Plus a busy weekend when it comes to a little bit of Major League Baseball. Because I watched something last night that I think is atrocious. Absolutely garbage. And I'm not talking about the Yankees' performance against the Red Sox. Coming up a little bit later on the show, Evan Bland will stop by. I'm back from vacation. Jacob Bigelow is in at 9. And big news. Big news coming from Husker Hoops this morning.
Oh, yeah? Ooh.
Oh, do you have TweetDeck up?
I don't have TweetDeck, but I got Twitter.
One of the coolest guys and one of the nicest guys to play for Nebraska in the last decade.
Talking about Jack?
2 of them.
2.
Jack McVeigh and now Keisei Tominaga is going to the Olympics. So Jacob will join us coming up at 9. That's the lineup brought to you by the referees at John Higgins Weather Guard. You can always discuss this weekend's events. As we are a Saturday closer to the start of the college football season, the hotline is always open for you. It is powered by 42 Degrees The Source by your mom's house, 402-951-1620. Or you can always get in touch with the program in the Equitable Bank inbox, where they take banking personally, professionally, and personally. What did I say? Personally, professionally,
and personally.
And they are mobile, so they'll bring the banking to you. Maybe not to your front door, but to your computer. It is the Equitable Bank inbox. Gary at 1620thezone.com.
Handley at 1620zone.com.
Now, also on the JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed, we're already active this morning. We'll run through some tweets at Gary Sharp 1620.
And Nick Handley 1620.
All right, there's Nick. Jimmy is here as well. The whole gang has assembled. Powers unite on a Monday. Plus, we'll talk about the police got involved in something last night in Lincoln.
Like the band?
No.
Oh.
Ringo was not there.
Whatever happened to Sting?
People forget about Sting. I just bring up Ringo because I think Ringo turned 84 yesterday.
Oh.
Ringo Starr was part of the police, right?
I don't think he was. That's when you said Ringo. I'm like, wait, what?
Okay.
Are they reuniting?
Hold on here.
They're not even reuniting, but bringing something in. Was this early police? It was back when they were...
Yeah, that's right. Ringo Starr was not a member of the police.
I mean, maybe.
All right.
In the early days.
Hey, at least I didn't kill him, so every breath that he takes.
Oh,
yeah.
Man. I'm still wearing that one.
Oh, you're fine. T.O. didn't die over the weekend.
No, he didn't.
So
Remember,
you're good. Yeah, you would have.
Gary had mentioned, I don't think you said this on the air. You said off the air, if something happens to him today, you're screwed. I'm like, yeah, come on, T.O. Make sure you take care of him. Good care of our guy.
Are we sure that Ringo
yeah,
Starr,
he's good. Oh, okay.
Are we sure that Ringo Starr did not make like a guest appearance with the police?
I mean, there might have been some type of compilation at some point, back where remixes were even a big thing. Maybe they did. Maybe they compiled. I don't know. That would be news to me, though.
Well, happy birthday, Ringo Starr. I'm glad you weren't in the police, because Sting, he wouldn't have given you what your rightful due.
No, that's right.
But there was a police presence in Lincoln last night, and we're keeping down the young kids. Oh, I got them thoughts. We'll do all of that as we roll till 10 on a Monday on 1620 The Zone.
Flooding in Iowa, Nebraska has affected communities in our area. The Red Cross is helping families and communities recover. You can make a difference. Donate to those affected by the flooding. Go to redcross.org/NRG Omaha Cares to share your support for disaster relief.
All right, welcome back in. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy here as well. Hey, in current baseball, is Buck Farmer not the best damn name in baseball right now?
That is a really good name. And you could say that Buck Farmer could have a lot of different purposes in life, too. I mean, Buck Farmer, a baseball player, Buck Farmer, a football player, Buck Farmer, any type of athlete. But also, if I were to tell you that Buck Farmer was on the tough man circuit, the strongest man competition, they still do that, by the way, that Buck Farmer would be probably your top three choice there.
Buck Farmer enjoys a Coors Heavy from time to time.
He looks like that guy. If you ever seen him,
Red.
he's kind of he bounced around the Tigers. He's with the Reds right now. He's a big dude. He's like 6'4", 6'5".
As he should
got
be.
a beard.
Heavy beard, yeah.
He looks like a Buck Farmer.
Mm-hmm.
But he was pitching this weekend as the baseball's. By the way, baseball's weird. So the Reds swept the Yankees and then just got swept by the Tigers as Skubal struck out 13 yesterday. That AL pitching staff in the All-Star game is loaded. I hope Skubal is the guy that starts. So baseball is weird. But I'm like, you know what? Buck Farmer is a great name. And his real name, I guess his full name, not his real name.
Bucky?
Wait a minute. Yeah, his full name, George.
Oh, of course. George Farmer?
George Farmer.
Rooney Buck Farmer.
George Rooney Buck Farmer.
Yep.
Wasn't George Farmer a tight end for the Rams?
What, back when Roman Gabriel was throwing in passes?
Yeah. Him or Dieter Brock?
Dieter. I remember Dieter Brock getting sacked in the NFC Championship game at Soldier Field.
A lot of them.
Yeah. Many times. Yes.
Listen,
life was better in the Rams when they had Jim Everett.
I think Buck Farmer is in the running to be my fantasy baseball team next year.
Just name your team Buck Farmer.
So my current fantasy baseball team is, sir, this is not an Albies.
Oh, so it's going to be Von Hayes.
Well, because my fantasy football team has remained the same, even though I don't like the quarterback, but every day I'm rustling.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And I've never had Russell Wilson.
Yeah, but at some point you just roll with it. Yeah.
Or Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah, nobody wants Jamarcus Russell,
yeah,
except for the state of Louisiana. But Buck Farmer might be in the running too if I ever want to change my fantasy baseball team.
Just be Buck Farmer.
All right, okay. Jim's got an update coming up at the top of the hour. So the news over the weekend on Friday. Again, there is nothing good about a news dump on Friday of Independence Day weekend where nobody's really around. And, Pete Thamel has a good relationship. I know people have inquired, why don't the Nebraska beat writers break anything? I think when you have a media core like this, you tend to focus on the national guys, so it doesn't look like you have favoritism. But I don't know. I don't really recall all the years that I've been involved with Nebraska football, beat writers breaking stories around here. It usually is the national guy who is fed information by the head coach or somebody else.
Would agree. When it came to even the Rule hiring himself, I mean, that was a national beat as opposed to anything local too. So yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon because I was seeing that a lot on social media on Friday
Why
night.
do you think it doesn't happen?
I would think essentially there is a little bit more of those reputations when it comes to the coaches that have crossed paths with some of these national guys. I mean, you see, we'll just use Matt Rule for example. You see when he is on with, he's been on with Reese Davis and Pete Thamel on their podcast. There's a relationship there. They have inside stories too. So during the path that has gotten them to their destination, whether it's Matt Rule to Nebraska or the coaches that have been in previous stops, you cross paths with a lot of those national guys. A lot of those interviews are usually a little bit more on the exclusive side. It's a little bit more rare. I honestly think the fact that we get more access to the coaching staff, people assume that, well, when it comes to something like this, we're the ones that are going to have that information first and foremost. But I think a lot of it is the ones that you actually speak on maybe an annual basis, but you do have those previous relationships because you've crossed paths with them and you've done things with them before and other stops at other places that you've coached. So I think just having that relationship that exists doesn't get talked about as much as the one that maybe some of the fans take for granted, that we have a chance to talk to those coaches all the time.
So there's another part of what happened on Friday. And when you eliminate what could be a major distraction and you're already on to the next thing and you have a plan, and all of a sudden we shifted from Evan Cooper to John Butler. Okay, what does John Butler do? What does his resume look like? Will he be able to make the transition from not being in college for a while? Does he really want to be a DC? And what does this mean for the defensive staff? All of those things. So you moved on Saturday morning. I mean, this was the swiftness of Saturday morning at about 7:30. Another.
That the P tweet?
The P tweet.
Hold on, I got to clean that microphone off. The P tweet is, will people still want to know why Evan Cooper was dismissed? Will this be a Carl Pelini, Marvin Sanders, Bill Moose, Evan Cooper? You know, stories of high-profile people at the University of Nebraska that all of a sudden disappear.
I still think yes, but I also think this is where the hire matters when it comes to how often are you asking that question, or how much more time you want to put into the why. That's why I think the John Butler story is extremely interesting as far as where he comes from, what type of fit he could potentially be. And if that ends up working out, I think you quit asking the question. You're just like, well, we think we've heard some things. We have never had that 100% substantiated, but you know what? Things seem to be okay, so I guess I can move on with it. And you kind of let what the chatter has been eventually just become the reality, and you don't really acknowledge it. Now, if it's a complete dumpster fire, or as you brought up in the last segment, if you don't have a contingency plan, if you don't have a true idea of what direction you want to go, then that does become, I think, a lot of the foreground of the entire situation is the why. Why is this happening? Why did this happen? Was this something that could have been disciplined, but you can remain on staff? So I think, again...
No, I think that's a good question, because is it something that was out of the hands of Matt Rule?
Right.
Was it to that level where Troy Dannon said, your defensive back coach is in a got-to-go situation? Now, I imagine that Rule has had conversations with Evan Cooper about whatever led to his dismissal, about, hey, what you're doing is not right, okay? Because this was not football performance related by any means. I don't think, unless there's some legalese that are involved, I don't think you ever get an official why someone was dismissed.
Right.
Unless, or it's tied into additional dismissals. Because there is one thing that's kind of a little puzzling of how Rule has set up his whole operation, is there are some guys that are support staff members that have disappeared as well. Are these all related, or are these completely different?
Right.
But I don't think, unless there's something legal that is involved, I don't think you ever get an official, this is why Coach Cooper was forced into a resignation. And as you alluded to, you just keep the ball moving. And it ends up as a chatter in the barber's chair in Lincoln.
Yeah. And then that's essentially what it
falls into the lines of Tim Miles and Scott Frost and Marvin Sanders. Still disappointed to me in Marvin Sanders because that was defensive back coach. And then, Carl. I mean, there are many others that are out there that it's just barber chair fodder in Lincoln.
And it doesn't, that's the thing too about, like I said, this is not saying that is the only thing that was on Matt Rule's mind in being able to not only move away from one person, but being able to move on successfully. Part of that element is being able to squash the narrative, or at least the questions, the rumor mill, however, people are going to speculate on certain things, to where it does, no matter how strong of a core you have on your roster, that it eventually just becomes a distraction because people are constantly asking you about it. And again, this is where it comes back down to Matt Rule. This is where it comes back down to, how do you approach the situation, handle the situation, and not only move on as a staff, but move on as an entire team, to where it's just no longer a story that these guys are being asked questions about. Big Ten Media Days, let's say Tommy Hill's there. Yeah, I'm sure he's going to get asked that question. but you're also going to be able to say, okay, so what do you know about the new guy? How's that happened? How's that going so far in the early stages of getting to know him and all that? So you go from one question to the follow-up of the future, where that type of element doesn't, in my opinion, create a distraction. It's you don't have a coach yet that's been hired, or there's been a lot of wild rumors going on that really it's just been super quiet. No one's addressed it. No one's really seemed to know exactly how to handle it. And so it's usually the student athletes that are in the crosshairs of all those questions.
And I think that's where a head coach addresses it and says, unfortunately, we had to dismiss a guy that's been close to me that I think is really good and has been an asset for us, but we had to make a move, and we're on to the next guy. And there you've addressed it, and the CEO sets the tone.
Yep.
If the CEO is like a little wishy-washy and leaves the door open,
right,
and does not straightforward, then you ask additional questions.
Yep.
But if you have a sense, because we all want to know, I mean, we're human nature. We want to know, why did this happen? But if you have a CEO that basically squashes it and says, no, that's it, I'll address it. I'm not going to avoid it. I'll address it. But there's no wiggle room for you to go, but you're like, on to the next thing.
Yep.
All right, we're on to an update with Jimmy. That's coming up next. We'll start to sift through John Butler. If he becomes the defensive back coach at Nebraska, what does that mean for the defensive backs? And if you're comparing him to Evan Cooper, is this an upgrade in some areas? Not just the resume and the experience. And also, what does he want in his next football life? It's been a little bit of a gypsy football life. We'll dive into that when we come back. A little bit later, Evan Bland stops by, and also Jacob Bigelow on this Monday mornings with Sharp and Handley. And Jimmy at 1620 The Zone.
The Storm Chasers were swept in Des Moines, falling to the I-Cubs 6-5 on Saturday. In fact, they dropped 4 of 6 between Omaha and Des Moines. They take 2 days off. Welcome to Toledo Mudhens. And former manager Lou Brown for a 6-game set beginning tomorrow at Warner Park at 7:05.
I watched Major League 2 last night, by the way.
Wonder how they fared in the World Series.
I know. We'll never know.
We'll find out in Major League 3,
Yep.
and then we got the buzz. American League and National League pitchers and reserves were announced yesterday for the All-Star Game in Arlington next week. A group of first-time All-Stars named includes Royals shortstop Bobby Witt Jr., Reds shortstop Ellie De La Cruz, Padres rookie outfielder Jackson Merrill, Athletics closer Mason Miller, and Paul Skeens. He needs no introduction. You know who he is. Candidate to start on the mound would be a good choice. Became the first player to be named an All-Star of the season after being selected first overall in the draft. Merrill was the youngest player at 21 chosen on either roster. Orioles shortstop Gunnar Henderson, 22, is the youngest player on the AL team after being elected a starter by fan. It's a good age to be. Just stay there. Somewhere, Carlos Zambrano smiles as the Cubs placed right-handed pitcher Colton Brewer on the 60-day injured list Sunday because of a broken left hand after he punched the dugout wall in frustration the day before. That damn wall. Brewer entered Saturday's game in relief of starter Kyle Hendricks in the third inning with the Cubs down 2-0 to the California Angels of Los Angeles and Anaheim. He got just 2 outs before being lifted and was charged with 3 runs on 2 hits, 2 walks, and a hit batter. The Angels went on to win 7-0 behind home runs by Brian Downing and Bobby Grich. Pete Alonso will participate in the 5th straight home run derby with the Mets first baseman trying to win for a 3rd time. See, LeBron, that's how you do it. You give the fans what they want. The Orioles' Gunnar Henderson and Omaha's Alec Bohm will compete with him. Randy Arozarena's 19-game on-base streak ended when he went 0 for 3 in the Rays' 13-2 squeaker to the Rangers' loss yesterday, as his last at-bat resulted in a fan interference call. Arozarena had a foul ball down the right field line in the 7th inning. Travis Jankowski, not Janikowski, that was someone else. That was Seabass, settled under the ball, but a fan in a Shin-Soo Choo jersey wearing a glove reached over the rail. I don't know why it matters what jersey. So he could have been wearing a Dean Palmer jersey for all I care.
Because it's the Shin-Soo Choo jersey.
Yeah, they just wanted to say it. Over the railing above the high wall and made a backhand catch. Nice job. Jeffrey Mayer would be proud. Umpires conferenced, and Arozarena was called out by first base umpire Mike Muchlinski. I don't know who he is. For fan interference. You know all the umpires. During a video review requested by the Rays, the fan held up a sign that said, "Home cooking." Thinking about dinner. Call was upheld, and the game resumed after a 3-minute delay, and afterwards, both teams went to Whataburger and discussed the game and their feelings.
Thanks, Jimmy. How about that? The Royals, this is the first time they've had 2 pitchers in the All-Star game. Remember, there was...
Just saying something.
That 80... What year did Saberhagen win his second Cy Young? 89?
Maybe.
So Mark Gubazov was on that staff.
Thank you for bringing up Mark Gubazov.
So... you would think Gubazov and Saberhagen, like in 89, because Gubazov got off to a great start that year, would have been on the All-Star team. But this is the first time the Royals have had 2. Don't overthink it. Torey Lovello, the manager of the National League team. Paul Skeens is your starter. This is an exhibition. People want to see the young guns play.
True.
So Gunnar Henderson, Bobby Witt Jr., Ellie De La Cruz, Paul Skeens, the young guys, let them play. That's who we want to see. But you've got to let Paul Skeens be the starter. Now, it does line up where he could pitch a couple of innings, even if he pitches 1, even if he starts, that's a win for the All-Star game, because what he is doing really is unbelievable. In his short amount of time since he's been up in Pittsburgh, he is leader for the Rookie of the Year in the National League. He is a top 5 pitcher in baseball right now. Like, if you have a must-win game, who are you sending out to the mound? I'll just say that,
John Smoltz and Jack Morris.
The National League. Currently in the National League, must-win game, who would you send out to the mound? Ahead of Skeens.
Oh, ahead of Skeens. Okay, because I was going to say, I'm probably looking at Paul Skeens right there in that situation with what he's doing, especially with the unfamiliarity that people still have on him. Oh,
give the fans what they want.
Gosh, I don't know. I can't even come up with
maybe Zach
no-brainer.
Wheeler.
But I mean, yeah, Wheeler would be in there, but I mean, give me someone else other than Skeens then, other than Wheeler then. I would.
That's why I asked you.
Yeah, Wheeler would be a good one too. But yeah, I mean, I think Skeens would be probably top of my list right now.
I mean, he's a rookie phenom. I would be
more reason.
I said Skubal maybe could start for Detroit, and he was wicked yesterday, and he's been really, really good. Man,
like Bird
we
Bitterich.
we live in a world where, the All-Star game is for a showcase. Like, I want to see Ohtani bat a couple of times. I want to see the best young players out there. I want to see Judge. You go to and you're in the T-ball world, and I don't know if they get to pick their numbers. Do they?
They don't.
Are you
no.
like Earl
Okay,
Weaver?
It's just 1 through 10.
So a buddy of mine coaches a 10 and under, which I never. I used to be in the AAU basketball world, and I know how intense that was. And they're just watching this from afar, where I got no skin in the game. I'm like, wow, 10 and under. Hello. They're intense, but it is curious to watch the numbers that the players have. So I'm seeing a lot of 99s.
Yep.
So Aaron Judge, you're seeing 7s. Bobby Witt Jr. Most kids around here can see him on a nightly basis,
especially locally. Yeah, you're right.
And you're starting to see a lot of 44s. So Major League Baseball, give everybody what they want when it comes to an exhibition game where home field is not on the line, and play the young guns.
I don't see as much 27 as I used to with old Mike Trout.
He just doesn't play as much.
That's true.
I mean, credit to the Cubs. The Cubs shut down Ohtani and Trout this weekend at Wrigley to win 2 of 3. Do not kick me off my cloud. We need all the wins we can get. Okay, I got us 47-51 going to the All-Star break. Trout, Ohtani did nothing at Wrigley this weekend.
They torched Mike Witt.
And so
Mark Langston.
Going back to the Skeens part of it too, yeah. If you're going to get some eyeballs, you're going to get the most recognizable guy right now in the game. That, again, it expands beyond just baseball fans, because there is that generation of the Instagram fans. So then there's the Livy Dunn connection too. So you get, it's kind of like the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift part for non-football fans. We all, as football fans, knew Travis Kelce was, but for the non-football fans, you get even that much more exposure on the product itself. So you're right. It's not like, oh gosh, we got to set this pitching staff up. So how we're going to strategize through the freaking All-Star game. Okay. That's not really the case. But then I think of, which I'm extremely proud of, that Cleveland has 5. That is, first of all, kind of a neat little omen here, hopefully.
Omen?
The last time they had 3 brand new first-time All-Stars was 2016.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, they're 56-32 is 56-32.
It is. But I also am not naive to think that people...
have a Captain Obvious moment there.
It is, but it's true. It doesn't mean it's not true. There isn't... I don't know. Jose Ramirez would be probably the closest to, beyond diehard baseball fans, maybe sports fans that say, oh, hey, I know who that guy is. But do you think there's kids that are looking up to Stephen Kwan right now, or Emmanuel Clase, or Fry? Or Josh Naylor.
But by playing in the All-Star game, like Clase, who is one of the best relievers in the American League, he's on that stage. You get to see him, and he throws 99, 100, and you go, whoa.
Well, when he's throwing a 94-mile-an-hour slider as well. But it's not the household name. But again, that's where I look at, if you're trying to give the fans what they want, you're getting your frontline guys, the most recognizable games, or guys even that go beyond the game of baseball. And I think out of the entire group right now, this is, because I know we were joking around asking who's going to have the bigger impact as far as power couples, Kelce and Swift, or Paul Skeens and Livy Dunn. And I think it's still pretty much in favor of the team you root for. But there's an element of that popularity that comes with not only what Skeens is doing from a baseball standpoint, but who he's attached with as well.
Yeah, I think so. Somebody who tweeted at me yesterday when I said that don't overthink this, Skeens should be the starter in the All-Star game. And they said, is Joe Burrow stealing his girl?
Oh, yeah. So there was that picture.
Isn't Joe Burrow married?
I think so. There was a, I don't know if it was an LSU reunion. There was a picture. They're all wearing it's like an all white look. It's OBJ, Joe Burrow, Livy Dunn, and Jamar Chase. And they're all in a picture together, and he's next to Livy. But I don't know if they're going off of just that, but it's not like it's a provocative photo. In fact, if anything, you would say, man, Joe Burrow has a man crush on OBJ.
Did you see the video that she put out yesterday after they found out he's going to the All-Star game?
It's just basically about her, like he's a no doubt All-Star or whatever. I don't know. I heard what she said.
Can we also recognize the fact that in about a 5-year run, the amount of talent that LSU has put out athletically, men and women,
Yeah.
I mean, look at Angel Reese.
Yeah.
Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark are up for Rookie of the Year in the WNBA.
Well, she just broke Candace Parker's triple-double, right?
You just rattled off NFL guys. You didn't even mention Jefferson.
Yeah.
I mean,
he wasn't in the picture, unfortunately.
Skeens, Dylan Cruz. I mean, the last 5 years of talent that has come out of LSU, hello.
Yeah.
No, I don't think Joe Burrow is. I think Livy is attached to Paul Skeens. I'm pretty sure Burrow is now married.
Skeens wins that fight, by the way, too, if it ever came down to it. That reach?
Just because there are big guys doesn't mean they're good fighters.
Oh, but that reach, though, as long as he knows what he's doing, just keeping him at bay. I mean, Joe Burrow's not a tiny dude, but come on.
I mean, David and Goliath, who won? Just telling you.
Joe Burrow's picking up the stone.
Just telling you. But with Skeens starting on the other side, and he should, I think it would be really cool. And here I am talking about Judge and Dela Cruz and Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt Jr. and more of the young guys that are in baseball right now. It would be pretty cool if Seth Lugo started for the American League.
Yeah, and okay, I think to your point, this is where Bobby Witt Jr. has brought more attention to the Kansas City Royals, other than the fact that I think we can all agree that they've overachieved at this point of the season, that people tuning in to watch Bobby Witt Jr. now see the dominance of Seth Lugo on the mound as well. So that's getting more eyeballs on what the Royals have besides just a generational talent in Bobby Witt Jr. So I think if you look at all of the different options that you have in the American League, and you mentioned it earlier, that it's impressive. That's one where I think if you go with Cole Reagans, if you go with Seth Lugo, two guys that I think people are now making household names in Kansas City as they're paying attention. And this is not just Royals fans too. I think for people that are being told, hey, you've got to check out Bobby Witt Jr. or are hearing about Bobby Witt Jr., got to check them out. When you see them at their best, usually one of those two guys is on the bump for them too. So I think that is, I don't want to put the Royals in a cool story, but the Royals are attached to, again, a generational type player, just like the Pirates are with Paul Skeens. Now, I don't know what Bobby Witt Jr.'s his love interests are. Is probably not as popular.
Is married. I think he either got engaged or married in the offseason.
Okay. But not to an Instagram star, I'm sure.
No, I believe it's somebody from where the All-Star game will be in his hometown of the Metroplex.
But yeah, I think the Royals have become, with enough wins that they have, but also you have a superstar, and then you look at the guys that they are also able to throw out there on the mound. That I don't think you could really go wrong there too. I think that is enough of a story where that's cool. It's kind of attached to what's been a good first half of baseball, some of the baseball storylines right now. And the Royals are part of it. Bobby Witt Jr. is the biggest part of that with the Royals, but I think the Royals overall are part of that.
All right, when we come back, as Nebraska moves forward to replace Evan Cooper and eyes are set on John Butler coming from the unemployment line to Nebraska, we'll get into his biggest challenge in the transition. Plus, I'll let the boys here answer a question that I had this weekend. Why is it Hawk to a girl and not woman? Also, her and her friend are looking to make a tour of cities.
Can we talk about her friend, by the way?
Yeah,
she's just there everywhere.
They're out touring.
She could be with one of our Friday shows this fall.
They're just they're a combination.
She's going to tour, and so she's taking suggestions. I guess Omaha is really, really popular. But why can't we call her Hawk to a woman? Why does it have to be Hawk to a girl? Those are questions. Those are questions that you ponder when you are waiting for football to begin. I'm just telling you.
These are July topics.
I think I have a simple answer, but we can.
And that would be?
One's just one syllable. The other's two. Hawk to a girl. Hawk to a woman. I don't know.
All right, Nick.
Hawk to a woman. It's too much. Hawk to a girl's just a lot
I
easier.
got you, Bookie. It's mornings, Sharp and Handley and Jimmy. 1620, The Zone. Hey, a staple in Omaha can be a staple in your wardrobe. It has been in mine, and it has changed it. You got Jack Victor, Bugacci, Samuelson, Baroni, Peter Millar. I used to think those guys were on a hockey team, and what line was that? And then I went into Lindley Clothing, Omaha's premier provider of men's fashion at 132nd and West Dodge in the Linden Market, and my mind was blown and my fit improved. Their team's been dressing men for over 88 years. Think about that. The entire team there to help. The one thing that I've appreciated and recently purchased a suit is the energy in the store. sometimes you go into the places and they're like, oh, customer service top notch, the energy in the store, the conversation, the lighting, everything pops. Lindley Clothing, well suited, right next door. Top notch. You know what? Even if you don't have an easy body type to fit into most things that can be purchased off the rack, they will go to work for you. They will find clothing for you. And right there at Lindley Clothing, that's what sets them apart. Top-notch customer service. You can't beat it. Easily located right at 132nd and West Dodge in the Linden Market. There you'll find Lindley Clothing, and then walk through the tunnel over to Well Suited. All right, welcome back in. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy here as well. We do need football. Big 12 football media days in Vegas. When does it start?
Tomorrow and Wednesday.
Big 12
Y'all.
hotbed of Las Vegas.
Can't even say y'all anymore.
Is Dion going to be there?
I think
He's
so.
supposed to.
I mean,
He's on the list.
Yeah, and it is Vegas too. So
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll have some Dion content.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, they're still coming.
Next week, SEC, Dallas.
Yep.
Then the following week, Big 10.
Mm-hmm.
How are the Big 12
Isn't
football...
ACC mixed up somewhere? Do we even talk about that?
Yeah. Go play basketball. Big 12 football media day. It's just a 2-day event for 16 teams.
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday.
When they were at the Star, they did it really well. Like it was, I heard it was really efficient. And in the previous version of the Big 12, I can't get over that. And I love football, and I wanted to get here, and that means summer's gone. Big 12 football media days start tomorrow. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Let's go.
What day does Colorado go?
Good question.
And I also need to know, like, what day KU goes, because we're going to lose Jimmy for about 15 minutes when Leipold is speaking.
Should we go live if it's during the show?
Who would be carrying it?
That's a great question.
ESPN,
actually.
the Plus,
Would ESPN
You're probably right.
possibly cut in?
I bet they would.
I know the SEC network, Daria was telling me they've got their huge coverage in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Big Ten Network also will have their big coverage in Indianapolis. But if I wanted to watch, like Kyle Whittingham talk about the transition to a coach in waiting, and he hits the podium, where would I find that? Maybe ESPN Plus carries the whole thing?
I think Jimmy's right. I bet it's ESPN Plus.
There we go. Colorado, Wednesday. Kyle Whittingham, favorite of the show, tomorrow. 12:20 Pacific time. So the Big 12 is putting all this in Pacific time.
Are they really?
They've sold out on their time zone.
I mean, that's, yeah.
I'm all for earlier game times. So this
just going to make it easy because they're all over the country. They're just going to say, okay, this is a location time. We're just going to roll with that.
Tuesday, you have the two purple teams, followed by Cincinnati, Texas Tech, Kyle Whittingham, Arizona State, the mulleted one, and then Matt Campbell. And then Wednesday, you have Colorado.
They kick it off?
Yeah. This is at 11 Pacific, so this will be
Oh,
Grandpa Nap. Then let's see. Kalani Satake, big fan of his. Dave Aranda, who former coach at the University of Nebraska and an alternative timeline. And then Willie Fritz and Brent Brennan, who I think will be very good in Arizona.
Love the Willie Fritz hire.
Yeah.
All right.
So there we go.
Welcome to football.
So they have total
Football.
complete coverage on USC because that's when these things will be taking place.
We have a couple of Olympians to pay attention to that have a local connection. I mentioned Jack McVeigh, who, about 10 years ago started his career at Nebraska, made the Australian Olympic team. Really, really, I don't know if you had a chance to interview him. Cool guy. It's not just the accent, but man, he just he's a really, really nice person. Japan made it official this morning. Keisei Tominaga has made their Olympic roster. And then locally, and talk about a guy who is trending up, Duncan McGuire is going to be part of the USA soccer team in the Olympics.
Okay. I don't know who that is.
You said that, I thought Joey? One of Joey's kids?
So Duncan played soccer at Creighton Prep and then had an absolute banger of a 3-year career at Creighton. His junior year, that really, really good Creighton men's soccer team, he had 23 goals, and he's now in Orlando.
Oh, okay. The Orlando, I've heard of it. Okay. I knew there was a former prep kid that played for Orlando. So
in between, he stopped off at Creighton and had a nice little career.
Yeah, I didn't know. Someone was talking about this a year ago or something. One of my buddies who was actually a prep alum. We were going over the greatness of Creighton Prep. I think it actually started with Kyle Peterson. The conversation was about Kyle Peterson. It's like, he's just so damn good at what he does. And then I said, yeah, but you guys don't ever produce like really anything. And so he goes, well, he said the name, but I remember him saying, we got a guy who played MLS in Orlando, and me being a jerk, I said, yeah, but it's Major League Soccer.
Man, Duncan, that was a national championship team his junior year. Sean writes in, most of the Big 12 media days will be on ESPNU.
I have that.
So if it's on you, it's on Plus too, because isn't all the ESPN content on Plus?
Well, because the Big 12 network essentially is ESPN Plus.
Yeah, exactly. Everything you get.
We discussed this on Friday. They could have done this almost 20 years ago, and we'd be in a whole different place today.
Yeah, that's true.
Is there a high school out there that has produced multiple Olympians? Because Geneva will have one this year.
I've been there. Know it well.
Omaha South? Multiple Olympians?
Gosh, I'm trying to think if there's.
I don't even know if there's a list out there. Could I go to the High School Hall of Fame in Lincoln?
I feel like the
and there's
NSAA should have something if they really care about their student athletes.
I wonder if there is a list. I wonder if I went to the Hall of Fame. Well, there's Chuck. If I go to the Hall of Fame, is there a section of Nebraska prep athletes that have performed in the Olympics?
Yeah, part of like all the school capsules, and it gives you the rundown on how many times they've gone to state and what sports. It should have that. I mean, that's actually significant, but multiple.
I might be in the minority here because people look at me and they say, you are a minority.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to the Olympics. I got Sha'Carri Richardson. I got Simone Biles. I got my basketball. I got maybe the best USA men's team. The best, but the competition is a little bit stiffer. I don't think Durant and LeBron are going to play 36 holes on the day of a game in the Olympics. I'm kind of.
You're in the minority?
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm excited.
Okay. Well.
Because you know why? Because it gets me to football.
Well, okay.
And I enjoy the Olympics.
But
love it.
The enthusiasm for Olympics has dropped a bit. But we do have, whether it be Duncan McGuire, McVeigh, Casey, at least we have like local connections. Creighton's got multiple athletes that are going to be in the Olympics. So, you'll have like a little bit of a rooting interest, but probably USA men's basketball is where the majority will go. And then Ledecky, if, how her career ends, all of that kind of stuff. I'm kind of excited for the Olympics. I even, at one point this weekend, with the U.S. men's basketball team getting together in Vegas to begin their ramp up, I'm like, you know what? When it's crunch time, who are my 5 going to be on the floor? Talk amongst yourself. That'll be a topic later in the week or as we get closer to the Olympics.
I do want to throw in a shout out now. This would not be for the summer games, but there was also, you can even throw a Norfolk Catholic to that list because they have Nicole Brungart, who was on the women's bobsledding team as well. So
which will not be in Paris.
That will not be in Paris. That will not be in
the
summer games. But I'm just trying to think of high schools. I don't think Norfolk Catholic has another one. I feel confident.
All right. Matt Rule wasted no time finding a replacement for Evan Cooper. There are a couple of defensive back targets in the class of 25 that Nebraska is in the mix, and especially for a guy like Bryson Weber near the top. I think he's a Nebraska guy, but probably needs to pause and think and probably, Nick, go, who is this John Butler?
Mm-hmm. And you know what? This is, again, going back to the conversation.
Not the GM.
Hey, talk about, I like Buck Farmer as a great baseball name. Is John Butler just a normal name?
It is very
like John
it's
Butler.
Almost too normal.
Kevin's dad.
Think about the defensive back coaches that Nebraska's had. We've had a Marvin. We've had an Evan.
Yeah.
We've had a Phil.
Mm-hmm.
Effing guys. I just want people to embrace the fact that of the craziness of Nebraska football in the last couple of decades, you have a university where Phil Almazian and Mario Verduzco both coached, not at the same time. Can you imagine them being in the staff at the same time?
I think everybody's heads would explode.
All right, so maybe
we had a Travis.
Maybe the most normal name. Yeah, Travis Fisher was kind of normal. Mark Banker was kind of normal. You help with the safeties. Mm-hmm. So you get a John Butler as a defensive back coach. John Butler does sound like a linebacker coach.
Actually, yeah.
John Butler.
Maybe a guy in the trenches.
John Butler would like to be a defensive coordinator guy. That's what his name he'd like to be attached. But his transition from Evan Cooper, who was extremely popular with his guys and had the continuity of the staff and the familiarity, now you make a transition to somebody who his biggest challenge might just be getting to know who his guys are. They've got 24 scholarship defensive backs. 16 of them are freshmen or true freshmen. When he hits the ground running, you have to watch a lot of film to figure out guys' strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, and I would assume also this puts a little bit, well, not a little bit, but maybe a little bit more than a little bit on Tony White and his plate as well. You're thinking about a 3-3-5 scheme, and just from everything we're hearing about John Butler is it's a guy that if he's going to take the next opportunity, there's going to be a lot of thought into that. There's going to be a lot of attention to detail of the type of opportunity that he was going to put himself in. I think that part of his experience as Bill O'Brien's defense coordinator in 2013, but obviously it was a very different Big Ten. College football itself was
that's where
very, very different.
I mean, he's been a pro guy for his last 2 stops.
Right.
And, he worked for Sean McDermott, who Rule holds in high regard, and Rule knows Bill O'Brien as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure when your network is as expansive as Rule's is, you start asking availability to everything. I mean, John Butler's a coaching gypsy.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing of the transition from back to the college game, that you've been out of the college game for a while. I know football is football in some circumstances, but the college is different from the NFL. So there is that transition.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a very fascinating transition with this potential, again, when it becomes official, hire. The other part, and you mentioned it, a guy that wants to be a DC, whether his name is John or it's something more exotic. John Butler, as you mentioned, wants to be a DC. So you're thinking, okay, why would he leave Buffalo when he says he's at his best when he's in charge? He's at his best when he's running a defense, and that's where he is now in his career. So he's either going to pursue those types of opportunities, or he's going to take a year off and evaluate what those what those opportunities are going to be. And so this is a guy that I don't think is taking this role unless he feels there is growth there. And so immediately everybody goes to, well, what did we also have to deal with in the offseason? Would Tony White be here or would he not be here? Is he, we all assume that it's inevitable when Tony White gets a head coaching job somewhere, and probably sooner rather than later. At what point are you also looking at this hire? And when you're talking to John Butler and talking that you have here, but also shortly, and not necessarily say, hey, you're going to be the DC in waiting, but at the very least, say you will have that opportunity to be the DC when that job is.
You think you can get a guy that quickly, knowing your defensive side of the ball?
I think it'd be really tough too, but this is where you brought up the network.
I mean, I know people will say, well, can he recruit? That was one of the first things. Well, can he recruit and make him a transition back to college? Mm-hmm. I'm more focused on can he coach football in 2024?
Absolutely.
It's a year tryout. Yeah. And then I'll get into recruiting because of Evan Cooper's connection, but I think this is a 24. You're here. We got to hit the ground running. These are your defensive backs. You kind of are a little bit familiar with the defense. I also believe that Tony White, remember his background at Arizona State, he worked with defensive backs. I imagine that he will help out. They're not just going to leave a guy out to dry. They're going to help him with everything he needs in the transition. I think Tony White will be in that. But he wants to be a defensive coordinator, and that's great. But I don't know, man. That's to say, hey, we're going to hire this guy on July 1, and he's going to be a co-defensive coordinator or a DC in waiting.
I don't think
let's have 2024. Let's see how this works out. And also, let's don't push Tony White out the door. Life's good for Tony White right now, and he's a smart enough man that he won't just jump at any opportunity. So let's don't think Tony White, this is it for him.
Yeah, and I'm for the record, I'm 100% with you on both those fronts, where that would be a very tough thing to make part of that agreement as this is the DC in waiting or this is our co-defensive coordinator. But if you are on the John Butler side of this and you're looking at, if you're going to coach this year, you're looking at potential landing spots that can either lead you back into the college game to see what that's like since you've left. And I know we'll get into this here in a moment, but how is your talent evaluation now compared to what it was when you were in the college game, which is obviously a big part of this too, but also being paired now. I don't know if there is any type of previous relationship with John Butler and Tony White, but when you're in that business, both pro and collegiately, you know the dudes that are on the come. You know guys like Tony White that have a very strong reputation. So being around those types of guys never hurts when it comes to getting back into the game. And so I think from the standpoint of, is he coming in with the expectation of that? I think he sees an opportunity for him to get back into the college game and to be able to work with a defensive coordinator that is obviously got his stock is through the roof and be able to make an impact that way with some people that he does know. I mentioned the Sean Patton relationship as well that he knows. So it doesn't always have to be like, hey, I wanted a defensive coordinating job, so I'm only going to take that type of job or a job that will, I know, lead to that, as opposed to, you know what, if I'm going to coach this year, I want to be around some people that I think are really good at this. I want to be around, A, maybe some familiarity, but B, a defensive coordinator, a staff that I've heard great things about.
You don't have a worry. And for all intents and purposes, he's well-liked by his players. And the reason he left Buffalo is because he was not hired as the defensive coordinator,
Right.
and that's what he wants to be. Any worry that we went from February to July and we got no DC interest? College or pro?
I think it's fair to have that. Sure. Yeah. I think that's fair. I think also when you're saying that's what you want, I think that maybe it shrinks the pool of opportunities that you're going to have, because again, especially if it's at the college level, people are going to look back and say, yeah, but if we're going the DC route, especially with how dramatic the college football game has changed on and off the field, that I could see a lot of people maybe not overly comfortable in taking a flyer. And maybe he did have some opportunities at lower levels and that just wasn't what he wanted. Mm-hmm. I don't know that part of it either, but I think that's a fair concern. Absolutely. And that's why I think for people who think he's taking this job with the either public or understanding that he would eventually take over, that's where I think you have to pause a little bit.
This is about 2024, in my opinion.
I
Bring
would
the
agree.
guy in. He immediately walks into a defensive room where there's some high-level thinkers that are in that defensive room. They also have, most of them have an NFL background, but the resume brings respect and the people that you've worked for. So he'll be able to talk the language and make the transition. I'm just focusing on 2024. 2025, recruiting, all that stuff, that'll fall in line. Or it may be just a one-year deal. Mm-hmm. But I'm just focusing on 2024 on the field. And in the recruiting part, the one thing that they have reiterated, even with an Evan Cooper who is very good at relationship building, is you are committing to a brand. You are not committing to a coach. There is a lot of times, and I know you spend a lot of time with your position coach, you commit to the position coach, and when he's gone, you're like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
They have tried to make it in recruiting, and that's why they do a lot of team recruiting with multiple assistants. You're committing to the brand, kind of like Yellowstone. You're not committing to rip. Yeah, you're committing to the brand.
Yeah, no, and
they just don't brand guys.
That's an important point.
Which would be probably another scandal among itself.
We're going to find out about some type of branding scandal that's taking place at the end. You made me immediately think of the lack of continuity, especially even during the time with Bo, where, good for you, you had some guys that were going to other places, but there was a time where you'd have one defensive back coach here and then gone the next day. There was just different parts of that relationship that I think at first, if you didn't know how that works, you worry a little bit about, oh boy, at some point that lack of continuity is going to affect him. But then when you realize, and I think this staff, like what you mentioned there, you've got, all sides of it. You got Matt Rule. You might even see a Garrett McGuire walk in with Terrence Knighton, with Rob Dvorak as well. So and this goes back to I think the one thing that Matt Rule wants these guys and these potential future Nebraska football players to know is that it is more of a team-oriented thing. It's more of a family-based oriented thing when it comes to their coaches, when it comes to how they're going to recruit. And it's not just going to be, we want that. If you have a strong relationship with your position coach, that's great. But we also want, if that guy is either A, not available that day, or he went on to pursue something else, that you have that familiarity with every defensive coach that is on your side. You might have a good relationship with your offensive coach and your head coach to boot. Yeah. I think doing that early in the process, and especially if you're thinking of John Butler, someone who's been out of that part of the game, and I know that we're talking about 24, but if you're going forward, I don't worry about 25 as much when it comes to the talent evaluation, because of that point alone is where it is a group effort.
I mean, I think essentially when they make this official, Matt Rule hired an older Evan Cooper. Evan Cooper, well-liked by his players. John Butler, extremely well-liked in Buffalo. and somebody who not only defensive back coach, safety and cornerback, I don't think it'll change where they will cross-train some guys, and also passing game coordinator. That's what Evan Cooper did. So Rule went out and hired a guy that's got a little bit more experience because he's older on his resume to come in and replace Evan Cooper, who it pains him that he's not going to be with him going into year number 2.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. There's another element of the John Butler that I think may not show up in 24. Maybe it will, but he can be a huge asset in one area, I believe. All right, 746 coming up a little bit later. Evan Bland, Jacob Bigelow will join the show as well. Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. All right, it is National Video Game Day. I guess more content coming out for College Football 25 throughout the week. Usually about a 10 a.m. drop. So is there I'm asking for a friend. Is there an age limit on being a gamer?
Hell no.
Thank you. So would you say that if you are older than, 30, and you are a gamer, it is considered a hobby, or would you tell that person to get a life?
That's a hobby.
Once you're older, you pretty much tell everyone you don't give an F what they think. You want to play it. So there's your answer.
I think after the age of 50, when you're saying that, that's when.
I mean, technically it was after the age of 6, but different conversation.
Now, my oldest brother is in his 50s.
And he's a gamer?
Yeah, he's a gamer.
Good on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you hang out at GameStop on the weekends?
I don't think
and challenges the youngs that come in?
No. He stays in his little basement bubble. That's where you'll find him.
You can do your 5 wide.
I don't think he's got the video game chair, though, anymore.
Oh, really?
At one point, he did have the video game chair. I do this because,
aren't those
so
the little, they're nice chairs.
So was he forced to give it up by the wife?
I think so, yes.
Oh,
so he's got no kids.
I got a good divorce attorney.
It's he and her. No, but so that's
like some of my paraphernalia.
This speaks volumes of her, though. She'll go down in the basement while he's playing video games, and she'll just read a book.
Like while he's there?
Yeah, so she's
next to him?
Yeah, so
she doesn't chart his plays?
No, she's supporting him. She's not into it, but she doesn't discourage it.
Different form of Jack and Jill, I guess?
Yeah, he still loves his Mountain Dew. He's a big Mountain Dew guy. I feel like if you are a hardcore gamer, I don't think this is a stereotype because I'm using my brother as an example. He is hardcore in all the variations of Mountain Dew, like the Code Red and
that's awesome.
Yeah,
has he always been like when you two were growing up together? Has he always been a gamer?
Well, he went from Dungeons and Dragons, then to I think the first thing we ever had was a ColecoVision, and he was one of the first to really get into that. And then we upgraded to a Nintendo, then Super Nintendo, and then away we went. But yes, like GameStop and gamers. I mean, I don't think he's ever spent money on anything lavish other than video games.
Good for him. Yeah. I mean, we all kind of have, so it's a hobby.
Yeah, definitely a hobby. Has been a hobby for his entire life. And he's got a wife that
now
puts up with it.
Is he good?
As far as I know, yeah. He gets into a lot of those.
Will he whip your ass in NCAA football? Or?
No, see, that's where I would probably beat the crap out of him. I could probably take him down in like Tiger Woods golf and Madden and college football. So I would be excited because I told you guys, I'm probably now going to get, but I got to keep it quiet because if Reese sees it, he's going to want to be all about that life. And I can't let him do that at 3.
Why? Because he'll beat you at 4?
Yeah, that and that kid turns into a cranky little SOB when he watches his iPad. So I can only imagine what that would do. But so I am going to get a gaming console because I really want to play the college football. I mean, that was like my high school and college growing up. But it's one of those things of I've got to get it now. I just gave it up a while back for my oldest brother. Yeah, everything has gone from move to move. He's stayed consistent with it. And so I think it's definitely, I don't look at anybody as like, you need to get a life, especially been doing it for
that is
decades.
The life.
It's okay to have it as a hobby. Yeah. I do know a couple of people that are going to use PTO days when the game comes out.
Yes.
Spend their whole day playing college football 25
to get through a season so they can build their dynasty.
Mm-hmm. Peter, if you're listening, you want to produce on
Nebraska is on a list of the top 5 teams, the best 5 teams to have a turnaround in dynasty mode. See, they keep and this is what's glorious because this doesn't come out till next Friday.
You get triggered by rankings in a video game. Get a life.
See, that's the part where you can you can take the video game back to the get a life part.
Brian says on Twitter at Gary Sharp 1620, country singer Kane Brown streams playing games on Twitch and TikTok, Call of Duty and GTA. So last night I was going through TikTok. Mm-hmm. I wanted to go back. You guys didn't watch this, but the Money in the Bank, the women's ladder match this weekend was epic. I know I'm speaking a foreign language to both of you, but if you know, you know.
We could have just went back 20 years ago. I get it.
John Cena, CM Punk, that should be opening night of WrestleMania. But I wanted to see a couple of highlights, and I ran across. And, now on TikTok, there's a lot of live, like in your algorithm, you might come across and there's live. Like I always get a guy that live streams the Cubs games and does commentary. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I've got like this lawyer that, is answering legal questions. And then I noticed like television anchors Yeah, I've got a weird TikTok.
Were you seeking legal advice at one point?
And then these TikTokers on TikTok of television news anchors that will have a live stream going just of them, and they will interact.
I've seen that, yeah.
So last night I was going through, and I did stop because I'm familiar with Kane Brown. I'm like, is that? Yeah. Now, when I was watching, because I do think it's a little bit creepy to be a little voyeurish while someone's playing video games, but that's what they want you to do. He didn't say anything, but yeah, he plays games with people.
Well, hasn't Twitch made gaming even beyond the age of a college student? Twitch and other outlets, and then the fact that just the esports world, that you can now literally go to college and do that.
But there is an age. So the guy that provides security for the talent for ESPN, John's been coming to the College World Series, since I've been involved, being back here at the Zone. So we're talking 11 years. His son was a professional gamer and was paid handsomely.
Yeah.
Like lived in a house in Los Angeles, competed overseas, like these big, huge events. His son was like one of the top gamers in the U.S. But when he turned like 24, he basically was done because he was too old.
Oh.
And so like they transitioned him out
to the senior
of his
circuit?
team. I mean, it's just they like younger gamers. And he's got like 24, 25, he was telling me. And, his son's a millionaire just by playing on that circuit. But when he got to be 24, 25, they transitioned him out of the house.
Why is that?
I think he retired at 27.
Jesus.
Is it because
I was born 20 years too
younger,
late?
Little bit.
It can't be the look, though.
No, not the look. I
Okay.
mean, you've seen gamers.
Sorry, Brian.
I mean, they're not walking down the runway. Okay. They're not walking out of the esports room with Livy Dunn. No offense.
Only if they have a third leg.
I'm the same way. I'm not walking out of the studio with Livy Dunn. Even though I did interview her.
You did.
And her sister, I think, was kind of.
Oh, yeah. Didn't she introduce you to her sister?
Yeah.
Okay.
And her sister's like, hi, how are you? Gary, huh? I was like, oh,
with a G.
You can read the credential. But yeah, I think he officially retired at the age of 27, but 24, they started to transition him out. I think it's the hand-eye coordination, just the skill set.
Gets a little bit slower.
I don't. John told me that it's a full-time job. Like you live in a house, you have security around you.
You just play video games.
You are more of a celebrity probably over in Asia than you are here.
Sure,
but if
like Jesse
the gamer community knows, and his son was like really, really good. Yeah, he was a millionaire. He said he was a millionaire, could buy his own house in Los Angeles by the age of 20.
Oh, that's amazing.
I mean, for $1 million though, it might be a small house.
I would make fun of my brother sometimes, as much video games as he play, but we all have hobbies, so I have no problem calling that a hobby.
Nothing wrong with it.
The only time I would say it's
some people do drugs.
It's outside of a hobby where it's more of a get a life is if
timeout.
It's the truth. We're complaining people do hobby. Yes, it's a hobby. And people are going to get judged for playing video games.
Sometimes they call that addiction.
Let's see, Jimmy. I collected baseball cards as a kid as a hobby. As I transitioned away from baseball cards, I started doing coke as a hobby.
Exactly.
You can blame it all on the baseball card gum, I guess.
I don't think
it was a gateway drug.
I think we have some of our medical professionals that are listening that should get at you for that one. A hobby.
Well, the whole hobby part of it, where I'd say maybe it's not a hobby anymore. Well, okay, as Jimmy said, drugs. If it does
Wait a minute.
To each their own.
No, if it does actually start to affect your life where you're not going to work, you're not as reliable, and because you are so fixated on that, that's where I think it goes from a hobby to probably a dangerous obsession or a very irresponsible obsession to where, yeah, you need to get a life. You need to probably step back, reevaluate things, and prioritize it. But I mean, we could probably say that with every hobby that we get into. I know people like you like to golf. I like to golf, but I'm not missing work because I was up late last night golfing, or I got an early tee time.
I don't know if you looked outside. It's a really nice day. If you wanted to go,
that's the beauty of having a morning show. You can still go afterwards.
Popping a gummy, I don't know if it's a hobby.
yeah. Like
it's not the same as collecting baseball cards.
No,
or figurines or all that kind of stuff.
You mean like what are you doing? Show prep? What?
We got to take a break. Evan Bland's going to join us in 30 minutes. So there's the recruiting aspect of not having Evan Cooper and a staff that I, quite frankly, doesn't have enough hammers. Matt Rule is your best recruiter. A lot of cases the head coach can be, but they don't have hammers. Cooper was as close to a hammer as Nebraska had. What does that mean? And does that mean bad things for somebody who I don't think recruits on Nebraska's staff if John Butler is added? We'll get into that. I know that's kind of, there's a lot of little different angles in there. Also, Jacob Bigelow will stop by in an hour. Either Australia or Japan will be his favorite U.S. Olympic basketball team, as Jack McVeigh and Keisei Tominaga are going to the Olympics. Tominaga's got a chance to raise his stock, especially if he gives the finger to another country. Mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
Halftime brought to you by Omaha Whiskey Fest 2024, the largest celebration of whiskey in the region.
All right, halfway through, a lot of Evan Cooper transition to potentially John Butler talk this morning, all up on the radio replay page as we're discussing all the angles. More on John Butler. There's something else in his resume that I think stands out. Would you guys like a stat of the day that's going to blow your mind?
Yep.
I just asked when I tell y'all this stat, you do not tell Kyrie Irving about it.
Oh,
The
Okay?
Earth is
Are we
round.
all in
round.
agreement here? Can we keep a secret on the radio?
I suppose we can.
So Big 12 Media Days start tomorrow. ACC Media Days, do we know when they are?
I think
Will
it's
they
right.
even have one?
Doesn't it usually, I think it intertwines with SEC Media Days, so I'm assuming it's at the end of next week. Let me check here.
Usually have it at a really nice location, if I recall.
It'll be, it's July 22nd, 25th.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would like to do the Media Day tour. Like they're the guys from the Orange Bowl.
Mhm.
They go,
yeah.
Mark Hochman, who is on, has an afternoon show with Channing Crowder, a very popular afternoon show in Miami. Their relationship with the Orange Bowl, they go to multiple media days. And actually, I don't like them because they usually get the interviews that we don't.
They'll be at the Hilton Charlotte Uptown.
Okay.
That's where it will be.
I'm a fan of Charlotte.
Nice
Well, one of the
downtown.
teams that'll be there is Cal. Are you guys ready for this? Again, do not share this with Kyrie because things will get a little sideways. Let me first approach it this way. This is the stat of the day, which can be sponsored by your business. All you got to do is hit us up.
Call upstairs.
Do you know what the Earth's circumference is? The
Mhm.
Earth's circumference. Do you know how many miles that is?
This is geometry. I'll sit this one out.
No, I do not.
I have the
Not
grades
off
to
the top
back
of
it
my
up.
head.
All right.
I'm going to go outside and check the wind real quick, and then I can give you a number.
I am working with two Rhodes Scholars. I'm very happy to say that.
Pythagorean theorem.
24,900 miles.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Good showcase bid.
Would you guys like to know how far Cal football will travel this year?
Ooh.
21,906 miles.
You are close. If we were playing The Price is Right,
One
hold
meal.
on to your powder.
Huh?
Ooh.
I'll have to win a Honda Accord. No, it's too cheap.
22,350.
24,000 miles.
Damn it.
Oh, wow.
So if the circumference of the Earth is
Nick wins.
24,900 miles, Cal is going to travel 24,000
God.
miles to play football this year.
Nick just won a trip to Nepal.
Is one a trip to Berkeley. 20. Wow. And they say geography used to be a thing when it came
Yeah.
to deciding conference.
Again, keep that amongst ourselves. Don't tell Kyrie because I don't know what'll happen when he has that information to deal with.
Has he gotten off that yet? I know he's become a little bit more normal, a little bit more down to earth, no pun intended.
He'll never get off that.
But is that the hill that he's gonna stand and die on?
The hill he should stand on is that I never thought that Kyrie and Clay would be on the same team, but here we are. So when Nebraska makes it official and John Butler is hired to replace Evan Cooper, and it's kind of a trade. Some might look at it as an upgrade, a little bit older, but there is the continuity, there is the familiarity, but there also is, at this time, when you are making a move in the middle of June from one coach to another, not ideal by any means, but a strong hire. Here's something that stands out on his resume, because he has an NFL background. He's worked for good guys in the NFL, guys that Rule knows. And he has been at places like Minnesota, South Carolina, Penn State in college of late. Is as a linebacker coach, defensive back coach, defensive coordinator, passing game coordinator. Here's the one that I wonder how much they will bend his ear on. Special teams. There is a special teams background in John Butler's resume. Now, if we're going to get into recruiting, and again, you've been out of the college game for about 10 years, so you got to get back into the college. But it's about relationships, and you're selling the brand. You're not necessarily selling yourself, even though you have to sell yourself.
Right.
but you're selling the brand, and that's kind of what Nebraska's trying to make the transition to. And it's all about relationships. But for me, it's 24 and making sure that the train stays on the track. But, if you're looking at recruiters on the staff, I'm not really sure, other than traveling around the state of Nebraska and eating a lot of food and saying hi to a lot of people and being generally a nice guy, what Ed Foley gives you as a recruiter.
Yeah. I would second that.
When you're recruiting in-state guys, the head man is the one that's doing it.
Yeah.
It's not Ed Foley is standing next to Christian Jones and they're like, man,
there's your hammer.
I love Coach Foley. Matt Rule.
Mentioned there's no hammer.
Matt Rule and a team approach does the in-state recruiting. But this is a big year for Ed Foley. And we like Ed. Ed is a cherubical gentleman who, when he walks into a room, you just smile. You got the Philadelphia accent. He's a nice guy who needs for his punter, his place kicker, and his return men to have a really good season.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, the special teams component of Nebraska football is at the bottom of the Big Ten or near the bottom of the Big Ten. So Ed needs everybody to pull their weight.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if they will lean on a guy like John Butler on special teams. There are other guys on the staff that have dabbled in special teams, but he's somebody who was, first and foremost, a special teams coach. That caught my eye when I was looking through his resume bright and early at 7:30 on Saturday morning.
Well, I would hope there's at least some type of collaboration there, because we know that you can now have analysts that can have more on-field roles, and maybe you do have some specialist roles in there as well. So there could be hopefully a little bit more detailed guidance when it does come to that on just working on your craft as, say, a kicker or a punter. But John Butler played. Now this goes back to his time at college. Now I don't believe he was doing that at Penn State, but you mentioned Minnesota. He was out in Texas, I think Harvard as well. So any type of experience with special teams, I mean, can you honestly say that another set of eyeballs that has an experience, any type of fresh perspective on what you're seeing compared to someone who's been in it really closely here the last year and a half, getting ready for a second year with this actual roster? I think that there's no downside to that at all. The only area that I would maybe be concerned, maybe not even an area, but the only thing that would concern me about John Butler taking on any type of role of that is your job, first and foremost, is to have the defensive backs in a position to succeed. You know what you want to do right there. If any of that work with special teams would take you away from that top priority, okay, maybe that's not something that you really care about here immediately in 2024. I'm not saying the team needs to care about that. Maybe that's not something that you want to put on John Butler right away. But going forward, as you get a little bit more comfortable, get your feet underneath you when it comes to what you're doing with the defensive backs, I don't see how even just having some type of collaboration or even just some type of aid when it comes to special teams. Because you're right. That is one of the most, maybe it's not even least talked about. Because I think it gets appropriate amount of conversation when you go into this 2024 season, you talk about maybe the bigger question marks of this team, and that is how does special teams step forward? So if there is somebody that has any type of experience whatsoever, you're at least picking their brain. Now, to what extent that would be my question. Of how far do you go with that?
Well, I think all of those guys. I mean, one thing I've heard, and actually from Evan Cooper, is it's kind of a think tank on that side of the ball.
Because you're using all those guys.
Well, you have a lot of guys from different backgrounds. And you have guys that come from the NFL, and there's a lot of familiarity. Remember, Rule already had of the two guys in Rule's football life, Corey Campbell and Evan Cooper are his dudes.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, this is not easy because they've been with him for a while. I mean, they were the two guys that he brought right away. Remember, he assembled his defensive staff essentially before he hired Tony White.
Right.
Instead of hiring a DC and then saying, hey, why don't you go out and hire the position coaches? He hired position coaches and he said, oh, and Tony's going to be our DC. So it shows you the value of Tony White, who's a very good teacher. But Evan Cooper once told me, and this was last season, because I said, there's a little bit of an interesting dynamic. You guys have been around each other for a while. He was telling me Rule is a good guy to work for. A lot of people want to work for Rule. He said that it's basically on the defensive side of the ball with on-field assistants and their analysts, it's a big think tank. There's a lot of guys that talk the same language. So that's why the transition in a new defense being taught was a lot easier to teach it to us and then for us to teach to the players. So I think that whole room, whether it be your DBs, your linebackers, your defensive line, or coordinating the entire defense, or then the element of special teams, is a big think tank. And they're exchanging ideas and ways to get better. And they also all have different viewpoints on when you're watching film on a guy's strength and weakness.
Yeah. Well, and this is the other part that's talked about Evan Cooper over the weekend is what you replace when it comes to a talent evaluator. And I think people always chalk it up to recruiting, which obviously that's a big part of it. But I think that talent evaluation within the current roster too is a big part of it. If you're identifying the Tommy Hill part of it was a really good example of someone who initially came over to Nebraska as a corner, but then he was used as a wide receiver. Then they were able to watch film, watch him in person, say, yeah, this guy better serves us on the defensive side of it. And then you coach him up that way. That's why I think the talent evaluation thing is not just going to be sectioned off to the future players that you're going to start building classes with, but also what you're able to identify within your roster. And that's the other part about John Butler that I'm interested in seeing maybe is the biggest part of the loss with Evan Cooper that I think about, other than just the relationships with the players, is are you going to have that guy that has an eye for that, both internally and externally when it comes to the roster?
You do have the head coach.
You're right. Absolutely
the
right.
Tommy Hill move, Evan Cooper signed off on it, but Matt Rule basically said, what the hell are they doing with you?
Yeah, and you have other guys like that. Obviously Matt Rule, but you look at that staff, and I think that's something that they pride themselves on. But Evan Cooper was a big part of that too. So does John Butler have a little bit of that eye for talent, that ability to evaluate players both, again, internally and externally when and I'm glad you said that part about 25. You worry about that when it comes. The 24 part of this is just coaching up the defensive backs, getting them in a position to succeed and where they're not a major liability, anything like that. And then you go from there. But I think it's at some point, because we can talk about this, at some point there is going to be that recruiting element or that talent evaluation that I think it's going to be very interesting to see. Again, going back to when John Butler was a coach in college football compared to how it is now, how everything in recruiting has changed.
I wonder if there's going to be some guys that get a new lease on life.
As far as players on the actual team.
You have a different set of eyeballs on you that's never seen you before. They never recruited you, so they never watched your high school film. They haven't been around you on a daily basis.
Maybe you got sideways with your former position coach, and all of a sudden you go, yeah, man, I didn't have much of a chance. Now I got a whole new lease on life. I got a new guy. Let's build a relationship, and maybe I get a better, I don't know, maybe a better vibe. And I might be overreaching here because, Coop had those guys in the defensive back room who are divas. They speak the same language he does. But new eyeballs, you never know. I mean, kind of back to your point about evaluation.
Yep.
Maybe a new set of eyeballs that has not been around the program, not been around any of these guys, comes in and goes, oh, I think that guy can do that. And it's clearly that the head coach is willing to be flexible and saying, okay, let's try something.
Well, and as much of praise that I remember Evan Cooper giving Matt Rule, I think you would hear a lot of that same type of praise for Tony White. Tony White, to me, comes across as a guy that's extremely adaptable when it comes to different personalities, both on the roster and then within the staff.
Yeah, they do. There are some strong personalities on the defensive side of the ball that they do a good job of managing.
Right. And
I think that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Because there's a big personality in wide receiver that they've done a good job of managing that has not been a distraction.
Well, the other part that I again heard this weekend is, how does a new guy, if you're looking internally, is there someone that would be an analyst that you can bring in if you go externally with a guy like John Butler? How does he mesh, again, not just with the players, but with the coaching staff too, with a group that seems like, and people forget, I think, because they have been in sync so much that it wasn't Tony White that was a Matt Rule guy, or Tony White that was the first part of the defensive hire to where all of a sudden they started branching out around him. That you could have guys that come over with you with Matt Rule, and then you can bring in a DC that is obviously more than qualified to run that defense, but also is qualified to adjust and to collaborate with those minds that he hasn't worked with. So I heard a couple people curious. I don't think they were even necessarily saying they were concerned, but they were curious about how he would jive with what is a pretty strong staff. I don't worry about that as much. I don't, because of who Tony White is. I think Tony White, there's a reason.
You know why he will be able. Do you think guys on the defensive side of the ball disagree with the dismissal of Evan Cooper?
No.
Okay, there's your answer.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's a big part of it.
I just got you from 0 to 100 quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you disagree with the dismissal, then yeah, you're going to think differently.
That's true.
But if you're like, yep, okay, then you're not going to second guess.
Right.
And you're also going to be like, this ain't football related.
Yeah.
All right. Evan Bland from the World Herald will stop by next. Jacob Bigelow as well. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy at 1620 The Zone. right, welcome back in on a Monday morning. Glad to have you in on the Zone TV, wherever you may be consuming the program. Now you get to consume the knowledge of Evan Bland, back from vacation with the Omaha World Herald. Good morning.
Morning. How's it going?
Good. How was the vacay?
It was necessary.
It's that good, huh?
I mean, you guys know how it is. Like, you get through the spring, you get through the College World Series, and then you have like this really condensed window until Big Ten Media Days gets here. So it's like that's the time, at least in my kind of work rhythm, like where you got to get away for a little bit, try to reset, recharge. And so, no, it was good. Went to Wyoming for a few days with the family and did a little river rafting and things like that. So it was good, and ready to kind of see what's next and turn the page now too.
Hey, and you come back and look at
there's drama whatsoever.
There's news on a holiday weekend. There's a lot we could go with Evan Cooper and John Butler, but let's go straight to the top. The way this was handled, and we don't know the whole story on a dismissal and a hiring, but we know about the guy in charge. Did the way this was handled, the swiftness and the potential hire's resume, do you think that showed off one of Rhule's strengths?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a guy who's already proven that he's quick on his feet to address a whole bunch of situations. I think he's a guy, you talk about ADs who have a list of head coaches ready. Like, he's a guy, I think, who has a list of coaching prospects and possibilities at the ready, just because like that's how he's wired and that's what he likes to do. And so, I think Nebraska fans under previous coaches, they would have been, it wouldn't have been a surprise if this coaching search maybe had drug out for a few days or a week or beyond. And for Matt Rhule to pivot immediately to a guy like John Butler, who, is looking for a greater role in college or professional football and has the resume that he does. Yeah, I think that speaks to his preparedness. I think it speaks to his connections that he has in college football and just how, just on top of everything he is. Like, he's such a detail-oriented coach. And we've talked about it in a whole bunch of different ways, whether that's, player development or fan engagement or all kinds of different things. And I think this is another example of that. And, you don't want to say that this is something Nebraska hoped would happen, but man, you do look at the resume and you say, all of a sudden, this is a guy who achieved at a high level in the NFL, in the college level as well. And then, oh, by the way, he's somebody who's an aspiring defensive coordinator, and your DC nearly left this last cycle for a head coaching job, and it's pretty, widely expected that he's going to leave in the near future for one. So it kind of feels like Nebraska maybe solved an immediate issue while also giving itself a candidate perhaps in the next cycle for its next defensive coordinator.
What was, whether it was John Butler or anybody else, what was going to be, in your opinion, Evan, the biggest thing that Matt Rhule needed to consider when bringing in a replacement for Evan Cooper, given the challenges that the secondary will face in 2024 and what Evan Cooper, that we know both internally and externally, brought to the table?
Well, that's what's so interesting about replacing Evan Cooper is that he wasn't just a defensive backs coach. I mean, and that was a position he learned kind of as he went along with Rhule. But this was a guy who, with the exception of about 6 months, one off season when he went to Miami, has been alongside Matt Rhule the entire time and has been his right-hand man, his talent evaluator. He's the biggest NFL draft junkie on the staff, or he was. And so to replace that guy is to replace, somebody who has a ton of institutional knowledge of what you've done, someone who is who knows what the measurables are, who knows kind of what the criteria is as they're going out and identifying talent. And so, I don't know that how much of that John Butler necessarily fits, but he's a guy who has his own kind of set of skills. I mean, you hear what some of his former Bills players said about him when he left in February as a guy who was an outstanding leader, an outstanding communicator. So I think that's probably one thing I think of, and Matt Rhule's spoken to it, is like he doesn't want a staff of yes men. He wants guys who have their own opinions, who have their own convictions about how things come together, and then they collaborate and they work on that. And I think Butler clearly has that. I mean, you look at his ascension from D3 defensive coordinator in his early 20s to D2 coordinator to where he was at Penn State a decade plus ago, and then rising up through the NFL. And his departure from the Bills is really interesting too, just in the sense that he had time left on his contract. He could have stayed as a position coach with the Bills for another year. That was a good team, a good franchise right now, and he felt so strongly about what he could do running a defense that he left and bet on himself in a lot of ways. And there was no guarantee that he was going to be in football at all this cycle. Mm-hmm. And now, lo and behold, this opportunity arises where Nebraska needs somebody at a position that he's coached. And you also can, as we said, kind of can see the opportunity to potentially have an in as defensive coordinator in a year or two when Tony White inevitably moves on to a head coaching job. So really interesting kind of set of circumstances that played out. But again, I don't think any of it happens.
Joining us. Looking at this situation, I think we don't have a good CEO, and it could be at the World Herald, it could be NRG Media, it could be Nebraska football, somewhat Fortune 500 companies. Things can derail you. Why do you think this won't be a distraction? Because, as you just alluded to, Evan, and Nick and I have reiterated, and people know this, Coop was a popular guy, not just among the DBs, but he was a popular guy on that staff. Why do you think, in this case, a month out from camp, it won't be a distraction to the guys that are the most important, and those are the guys that wear the helmet?
I think one reason is because the culture is as strong as it is. And that isn't just coming from one guy. I mean, how many times we talked about the retention that Nebraska was able to have relative to the transfer portal in the offseason. That's not just because of Evan Cooper. That's because of Matt Rule, the rest of the staff, the support system around the on-field personnel. So, I think it goes a lot deeper than just one assistant. And maybe that wasn't the case, 3, 5, 10 years ago in Nebraska, where it was sort of like a lot of guys came because of one position coach or something like that. So I think that's the place where you have to start, was let guys know what to expect. Guys have relationships with, folks in nutrition and academics and strength in ways maybe they didn't a handful of years ago. And I think it also helps that this position group actually does have some strong veteran leaders. I mean, what we've seen from Isaac Gifford, Malcolm Hartzog is a leader in this group. Sean Singleton, who I think a lot of fans maybe kind of forgotten about because of his injury last year. He was a single-digit jersey guy. So it is a group. Marquise Buford has been a leader on and off the field. So it's a group I think that has a lot of confidence in what it is. And again, it is confidence within the defense, within the structure of the team, not just, this is who we were under Evan Cooper. So I think that's probably where I would start is, these guys know what's expected of them. They know now after a year what this culture is. I think it's from that perspective, this program's in as strong of a place as it's been in a long time. And so when you have that foundation and that collective understanding of kind of what you're working toward, then a guy can leave, and it doesn't have to be the end of the world. And I think we've seen that play out, in the few days since Cooper's left. And again, the reason for why he departed may have played into it too, where it doesn't feel like this is a controversial decision in any way, sort of like Bob Wager a year ago. Like, people just kind of understood this is what happened, and guys move on, and it kind of has that vibe this time around too.
Yeah, and we brought that comparison up earlier in the show. The things that even back then we saw, even though they went internally with an analyst, but being able to pivot quickly and to sell the room, which I think Evan was a much tougher deal last year because you still didn't really know this staff if you were on the team as much as now a lot of these guys do. And as Gary mentioned, we talked about the popularity of Evan Cooper. There's obviously going to be challenges with that secondary, but if you look at this even potentially, and this has got to play out, Evan. We know that. But if there's potentially even an upgrade to what Evan Cooper brought and what you can get out of John Butler, given his credentials, what area intrigues you the most about John Butler and what he can do with the staff?
Well, again, like I kind of reminds me, he's more of a higher in the mold of a Tony White than he is with the other guys on staff. And I say that in the sense that, like, Butler is not a Matt Rule guy. Like, a lot of the guys on the staff do owe their careers or maybe their big break to Matt Rule. The different stops that they've had in football. And Butler isn't that way. Like I said, he's kind of was a self-made guy, rising through D3 and D2, and then with the Big Ten stops, and ultimately into the NFL. And so, like, he's going to bring, I think, some different perspectives to things. You look at his time at Buffalo, and he was known for developing some younger, maybe underachieving players or under the radar players. Maybe at Buffalo, they endured a lot of injuries there in the secondary. Most famously the Handley injury on Monday Night Football, and there wasn't much of a drop off. Like, they continued to find ways to piece it together. And this secondary, I think, while you can pretty well name who the starters will be, I think this is a group too that could use some development and may during the course of the season need to be sort of pieced together as injuries or performance issues crop up or whatever it might be. So Butler's not a guy who in his early 50s needs to be brought along or necessarily is one of those guys who's early in his coaching arc. Like, he's someone who I think kind of has established his coaching voice already, so to speak. He clearly believes that he has the ability to lead a defense at the college or professional level. And so, that kind of leadership, that kind of conviction, I think isn't all that far off from what Evan Cooper was. He was also a very, self-confident guy. And so I think in that respect, things won't change too much, but, you mix in the experience that Butler has, especially schematically, it sounds like you listen to his, some of the stuff came out about him from Buffalo. He was very schematically sound and someone who, was able to help his secondary, fool quarterbacks or give them a lot of pre-snap things to look at. I think that's, one of the strengths that he has as well. And so maybe that's an area where Nebraska can gain a little bit of an edge, moving forward with a guy who's just a little bit more experienced in terms of in-game strategy and operation.
You brought up just a little bit ago a player in the defensive back room, and take out coaching aside, but I'm talking about Deshaun Singleton. And you know this, Evan. He's a guy that we chatted a lot about in September. Unfortunately, second play of the game against Michigan, he goes down with a severe injury, out for the year. Doesn't go through spring. But in the 4 games prior to Michigan, that guy was a dude. Playing free safety, he would come up, he'd play that slot corner where he could help out and run support, and he was tackling running backs behind the line of scrimmage. But then he's out of the lineup, and you realize, gosh, Nebraska doesn't have depth, to make up for a loss like that, and also a guy that got a single-digit number. So, and he's healthy, so he's going to practice. He'll be ready to go on day 1. What does the Deshaun Singleton, healthy for 12-plus games at the level he was playing at, do for that defensive backfield?
Yeah, it'd be huge. I mean, he's one of those hard-hitting safeties, like you mentioned. We saw in the 4 games that he played, like, he wasn't afraid to come down and crack a running back, near the line of scrimmage. He also could drop back. You look at some of his Pro Football Focus grades, and he was one of Nebraska's more well-rounded players. And so, if he can stabilize one of those safety spots, maybe along with Malcolm Hartzog, then that allows you to be a little bit more creative too at your cornerback position. So you've got Tommy Hill on the one side. Hill, obviously, they liked at corner before he got hurt, and he'll factor in at some point this season as he comes back. But it does, I think, allow you maybe to look at Marquise Buford maybe back at corner if Singleton can entrench himself as a safety. So, and I think this is a secondary that while you're looking at 20 plus DBs that are listed on the roster, you feel probably pretty good in terms of proven commodities at about a fourth of that. So like, if you can have a guy in there who's a playmaker, who's a veteran, he's technically a senior. I know Nebraska's looking to maybe get him an additional year of eligibility since he just played only a couple snaps in that 5th game against Michigan. So maybe this is actually his junior year ultimately, depending on how that goes. But he's somebody too who is a leader. And when you factor in what we've just been talking about with a new position coach, Singleton, I think his leadership abilities, the fact that he's been with this team now, for a while relative to a lot of the roster, I think all that can play into it. It sets it up for him and a guy like Isaac Gifford to really step up and be leaders and both in terms of on-field performances, but then also as vocal guys and as seniors on this team. I think there's just a ton of value in having him back out there. And again, he's kind of interesting because people forget about what he was all about last year when he didn't really play past September. So I think if he can come in and pick up where he left off and he's 100% physically and all that, I mean, it's a major boost to the outlook of what this defense can be in 2024.
Evan, this is the most recent example, but I go all the way back to listening to Matt Rule talk on certain national shows as well, or national correspondence when it comes to this team. There's a subtle confidence, and he lets that come out. But there's just that overall presence of this team that he continues to show us that seems to be extremely even keel. Now we get another example of Matt Rule, not only the head coach, but the CEO of the program. When you now look at 2 off seasons, obviously last year going into the first year, a little bit more uncertain, but this year you get a better feel of what he is. What impresses you more about Matt Rule? Is it the CEO part of the job? Is it the head coaching part of the job? Is it both? What stands out just with everything we've seen, especially with the offseason chatter, both positives and sometimes not so positive?
Yeah, I think the CEO part, specifically as it relates to attention to detail, is what stands out to me. Like, there's just not, it seems to me that he's thought of just about everything that you could think about. Like, he's forward thinking when you start talking about what college football is going to be in the near future, in the long-term future. He's not, you can talk to a lot of coaches and maybe they're limited more to the X's and O's part of things, but he can talk about just about anything related to, just the strategic setup for what Nebraska wants to be. I mean, you can talk to him about how Nebraska's advantaged in the new Big Ten because it's in the central time zone, and like the recovery time and time zones aren't that big a deal relative to some other schools. You can talk to him about just anything, all kinds of different details beyond what I think maybe people would associate with a typical football coach. I think back to how quickly the thing last year with the volleyball players who couldn't eat the training table that was provided for football, and some of the stuff that came out on social media. And within 2 days, he had set up a meal just for them in appreciation of what they did, and calmed that particular storm. You can tell he listens to pretty much every interview that his players or coaches give to the media. That wasn't always the case. So he's very in tune with what's going on within his own roster. He's very in tune with what's going on in the trends nationally. I think he and Nebraska were sort of on the forefront of how you can craft a roster creatively within the rules of NIL and add more, scholarship players essentially than what you would normally have. So like, that to me is what really stands out, is like, there's just no stone left unturned, with him in terms of the operation, in terms of the people that he wants to hire, the strategy that goes into it. It's just really been impressive. And I know it's a lot different from what maybe some of the previous Nebraska coaches have been in that regard. And I think it's a skill set you have to have today. Like, it's so much more important now than it was even 5 years ago. because you have to retain your own roster and you have to worry about NIL and just all the different things that go into it. It's a job that you need to be on 24/7 to stay competitive, to stay on top of things. And so I think that's one of his skill sets is he's a football junkie, a football lifer. This isn't work to him. I think most of the time it's something that he wants to do, something that drives him. And so Nebraska is the better for it. And again, we see it in situations like this in July when you have an unexpected staff change. As surprising as I'm guessing maybe some of the circumstances were, I don't think it caught him flat-footed, and that was reflected in the swiftness of the replacement. So really impressive for him, and we'll see how that continues to pay off in terms of win-losses moving forward.
Yeah, I think he had an idea that this could have happened. Evan, welcome back. Great to have you back on the show. And just think, in 2 weeks, we'll all be going to Indianapolis.
Can't wait. Hey, thanks, guys.
That's Evan Bland from the Omaha World Herald.
I think he was genuinely excited about that, actually.
To go to Indianapolis?
Yeah.
Is Indianapolis fun? Not the city, because I like the city. It's a little bit larger version of Omaha. They do events well. Got a couple of professional sports teams.
Still a Midwest vibe, though.
Yeah. But the terms of like the event, and now that they've stretched it to another day, there are going to be media that are just dreading it. I know a lot of the Nebraska media are just going to get in when Nebraska is there and out.
Yeah, that's the way to go. You got a 3-day thing. It's going to be like a condensed College World Series. You get there first day. It's exciting because you're talking college football. And by the last day, if you're doing all 3 days, you're like, yeah, I'm done.
All right. Jacob Bigelow is going to join us here after the top of the hour. We have to talk about Cam Wilder.
Okay. No.
I know you're not a TikToker. You're not a YouTuber.
Wait a minute.
He created quite the scene last night in Lincoln.
Yes. Okay. This is the park.
It's Antelope Park.
Yep. And the park party. Yep.
I used to live at 40th and Normal.
That was insane to see that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
But Nebraska has the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, has a role in what turned into a crap show last night in Lincoln with a YouTuber that said, let's play some pickup basketball. And they had a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people show up at Antelope Park. And then the cops showed up. And then the State Patrol helicopter showed up. And then the guy that wanted everybody to show up left.
Yeah.
And then the cops are like, now what do we do? Jacob Bigelow coming in a little bit. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. All right, so yesterday, actually it was earlier in the week, Cam Wilder, who is a YouTube influencer, he likes to show up and play basketball at different places, has 34,000 Twitter followers, much more on Instagram, much more on YouTube, said, I'm coming to Lincoln to play basketball this Sunday. So he wanted to go to the university and play basketball on one of the outdoor courts. The university got a word of this, and you know what happened? They said, not today.
Yeah. And then they moved to Antelope Park.
Well, they said, I don't think publicly they said no way, but they blocked the rims. So the Quinn Clarks of the world, who have turned into a YouTuber where Quinn Clark, Kenny Clark's son, playing for Nebraska, is a hooper, and he'll go play on, I think it's the Harper Schramm Smith courts, and is attracting quite a following in Lincoln because of his dunking ability. And they put it out on social media. He did it last week. So they make the move to Antelope Park. Now, if you're familiar with Lincoln, where Antelope Park is, those basketball courts are busy. Like I remember when I was living at 40th and Normal, you would see guys hooping it up, and you would see Huskers.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be out there playing on the blacktops. I mean, it was some serious game, so much that I didn't go over there and try and get in the game.
Oh.
So last night, he lets everybody know that he's going to be there, and they never got going with the game because there were too many people. Like, there are thousands and thousands and thousands. Now, there are from young kids. I think I saw somebody that might have been 6, 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
To there were some adults there that were ready to watch a good hoop it up game. Thought maybe Henry T. Buchanan would come out of, or Bernard Day would come out of, out of the crowd and start going old school. So the police then get involved because that intersection, which is relatively busy,
Mm-hmm.
gets backed up and people are parking a ways away and walking. I mean, it was a blank show. And there were so many people that all of a sudden Cam Wilder bails, gets into his car and leaves. And that's where it got, like, I think the Lincoln, so the way it was explained to me is the Lincoln police they realized this was growing and
Mm-hmm.
large. They were going to help contain it so that, they could play some basketball. And then once he left, things got a little sideways, and then it was like, we got to get people out of here.
Yeah.
But I noticed Cam Wilder's tweet. So Nebraska was an effing blank show, and it's got pictures of just thousands and thousands of people at Antelope Park to watch a pickup basketball game.
The one that has the court sectioned off, but the amount of people that are just surrounding the one court where it's like, okay, you can play here, that's quite an eye opener. Because I think, they estimated right around just over 1,000 people being there. I think they were all gathered around the one court. So, I mean, there was one available. You could play there.
Well, so have you been to anything like this, or you've seen Rucker Park?
So
people, I mean, that's just kind of the given.
Yeah.
You line up around the court, you let the court be the court and let
Mm-hmm.
people play, but you make,
like
you're basically
bordering it with bodies.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it was just, I think it would have been, I wish it would have happened though. I wish they actually would have played, because that would have been really cool to see. And you're right. Anytime you hear about the police presence, you're thinking, okay, were there arrests? Did something happen? Was there, heaven forbid, was there any type of threat of violence or anything? And it wasn't that case. It was simply because of the traffic concerns. But then when all of a sudden the main act is no longer there, then
he bailed. He was like, we're not going to be able to put this on. So, I mean, hey.
But did I hear he might return?
Well, let's get him to Omaha. So, hey, youth are looking for stuff to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're going to hang out and watch a YouTuber and his buddies and other guys play basketball, and, there's no threat of violence or anything like that, and the authorities can keep it under control.
Yeah.
And they had like a day leeway that this was going to happen, even though he had said, like, I don't know, like on Wednesday or Thursday, he was going to be in Lincoln. I think this is a great idea. So in Crime Town, and they won't let you play basketball there. I'm just kidding, Lincoln Police. I'm just kidding. You guys were trying to help. Let's bring it to Omaha. Let's go to Dewey Park.
Dewey Park. I'm not. Where's that one? I'm not familiar with Dewey Park.
Okay. Maybe I'll give you here's one. You being a West O guy. What about Genesis?
Oh, the one over on that, like right before I guess you get to the
So Genesis
Dodge area.
has a good pickup run. I will tell you another sneaky place. So Benson Park. Benson Park is a place where I've heard if you're going to play pickup basketball, you might be able to find a pretty good game there.
Mhm.
I'll give you another one, and it's in my neighborhood. Sneaky, the UNO, the Exarban Village campus, the outdoor basketball courts.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see like guys from the Mavs playing, but there are some, because that's on the trail when I walk by.
Yeah.
There's some people that have some game that are out there playing.
There's space around there too. You're gonna need a little bit of that if you're gonna pull this off. Apparently.
I mean, where else would you go in this city if you were doing a Cam Wilder?
Man.
I'm going to have thousands of Utes. They're going to be out to watch us play basketball, pickup basketball.
Well, in my new, I don't think they'd probably take that out to Bennington, but there are some new nice parks that have like the full get up when it comes to the proper equipment, you've got the plexiglass boards and the breakaway rims, good level surface as far as to accommodate everybody in a high level of basketball. I'm trying to think where I've actually ever seen some activity when it comes to basketball. Well, okay. I'm not sure. Maybe this is okay. Over at Fontenelle, right behind where Omaha North would play baseball, right behind right field, there is I don't know what it's called, but anytime we played there was always multiple games going on, and it looked like we'd have a smattering of people there too, watching it. Sometimes they would talk trash to us when we were in right field. I remember when I was a freshman, there were things being said to me.
Did you ask to get pulled?
I was like,
like the DH today?
Coach, your arm's starting to act up a little bit, a little sore. It might be the tendonitis. But I remember going back there, coaching a few times, and it was still extremely active. I don't know what that court is called. And honestly, it's been since 2013, because when I was at Columbus, we would go and play there in spring. I know it was still there in 2013. I'm not sure if it is still, but that place was always packed.
Ed says Dewey Park used to be a great place to go play pickup basketball, and then the tennis people and the pickleball people took over.
Oh, yeah. Pickleball is, I'm sorry, man.
So you guys, have you been to Dewey Park?
I've never been to Dewey Park, no.
Okay, so it's, let's say you drive down Leavenworth and you want to cut across to Midtown, and you cut through a neighborhood, and as you're driving from, what are you coming up on, Harney? So let's say you go from Leavenworth, you make a shortcut and you get to Harney. You're going to drive on the left-hand side. That's Dewey Park.
Okay. I guarantee you now, if I was driving there, I would do, okay, I've seen that probably thousands of times and didn't know the name of it. But yeah, if someone knows the one I'm talking about, I think that'd be a good one. The only problem with that one off Ames is it's right off Ames. So you would have
the ball goes into the street, you're screwed.
Yes, you would have parking issues as well. Like people, in this case, what happened at Antelope Park, you'd have people probably pulling up alongside Ames and just getting out there. Again, that would be a big traffic issue. But I remember that was a very popular place. And I think there is a YMCA right next to it. There's the YMCA, there's the baseball field, and then there's the basketball court right behind right field there.
Bellevue West, Joey says Bryant Center off North 24th would be a good spot. The Bryant Resource Center is right there, 24th and Grant. I don't know about their outdoor courts. Yeah. I will tell you a place that is sneaky that you will find people that will go and hang out, and they've got really nice outdoor basketball courts.
The old PayPal?
No, but you know what? They have those. If you try and go play there,
yeah,
you know that when the PayPal was there, the
I'm
employees
assuming you had to be an employee, right?
Yeah, like if you go there now, the security, like even though I think Kiewit's supposed to be in that building, but I don't know if they are. Oakdale Elementary off of Center, the new Oakdale Elementary in District 66. They've got really good outdoor basketball courts.
Okay, now you got me thinking of another OPS. It would be middle school. It's not Beveridge. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank. There's another one that it's a little bit further northwest. Is it, God, a buddy of mine used to teach there before at the Mill North. It's escaping me, but yes, I think a lot of it, well, hell, there's a lot of new elementaries going up. Like those courts are phenomenal.
Yeah. So, in Crime Town, it doesn't work out. But we're better equipped here in Omaha to handle something like this. Just bring it to Omaha. We'll show up. I mean, we were void of the summer league. I mean, we're on a few years of no summer league basketball.
Yep.
You don't think something like this? He's kind of getting ready for a fight. Bud Crawford would show up too to hoop it up. I miss Bud Crawford playing summer league basketball down at the field house.
Yeah.
Miss those nights.
I heard those sometimes get contentious too.
Yeah, I mean, Bud would talk Bud stuff.
Well,
Bud could ball. But I'm like, you're 5 weeks out from a fight and you're here in Council Bluffs on a Monday night playing basketball.
It's a good opportunity to work on the feet, though.
He was a hooper, man.
Yeah.
His nephew, not a bad player for Brian as well. All right, 9:05. We'll get to Jacob, who I don't think was there last night. But we'll find out.
Would it shock you if he was?
We will do our. We've got to put together the best 5 spots in Omaha if you're looking for a run. You want to go play pickup basketball, the best 5 spots in Omaha. Benson Park is getting a little love here. I've not been over to Benson Park, but somebody told me long when I was thinking about being a basketball star.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, you know what? White men can jump. Come over to Benson Park. I'm like, I think that's a setup.
No, I'm telling you where you wouldn't go, and that'd be Nyhard Elementary.
Lived in Nyhard. They tore it down.
Oh, yeah, that one too.
Jacob's coming next. All right, on this Monday to kick off the last hour, welcome our good friend Jacob Bigelow. Good morning. Happy post-Independence Day weekend. I hope you had a good weekend.
No, same to you guys. I was pretty low-key, took it easy, but it was a nice weekend nonetheless. But happy to get another week rolling with you.
Hey, were you in Lincoln last night? Were you at Antelope Park?
I was not. I had originally thought about sneaking down there, but then, if I'm being honest, I completely forgot about it.
Oh.
So I did receive some updates from someone that was there, but no, I did not. I did not make the drive down last night.
Would that have just been the hoop head in you, just wanting to see what's happening, or would you have had other reasons to be there? Are you going to evaluate some maybe local untapped talent?
No, it would have just been the hoops head itch more than anything. I have been told there were quite a few members of the Nebraska basketball team that were in attendance, so that could have, I don't know if I doubt they, their coaches would have wanted them to be playing, risking injury in the summer, but I have been told that quite a few of them were there last night, so would have been the hoops head itch, and then maybe seeing a couple familiar faces, but nothing too crazy.
So it was not like, if you remember the names, this is going back, this is about 2 decades ago, maybe about 20, what were they here, 99? You remember the name Danny Walker or Rodney Fields? Maybe, might have been before your time, but these were 2 guys that were on the Nebraska roster. I think it was 1999. There is a story out there of they went and played at Antelope Park on those basketball courts. And I'm not sure which one, but they did almost like White Man Can't Jump, where Marcus Johnson is going to go to his car and get his gun. One of them did threaten to kill a Lincoln kid.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. No charges were pressed, and it was just keep it moving, and they went on to the next point. But there is a legendary story of either one of those guys got a little bit too heated and maybe went a little bit too far.
Oh, that's a new one for me, considering I was 2 in 1999. That was a little before my time. But no, I gotta get more informed. But that's no, I've heard that those courts were happening. Back in the day with some Huskers, some multiple sports. Going over there to get some runs in. So I've heard plenty about those courts, but I had not heard that one.
Some might say you weren't even a twinkle in your parents' eye. That's where Keith Newbert honed his basketball skills during football workouts. Thank you.
Gotcha.
That was exactly the response I was expecting to get. But on this note, do you think, because here in Omaha we were lucky for the longest time to watch the Summer League, which had former college guys, current college guys. It was always a big thing for Creighton fans. That they could either go to Rosenblatt and see the new Creighton basketball players carrying cable for ESPN.
Good point.
Or they go watch them in the Summer League, and there was really good attendance. And then it just kind of, that whole thing across college basketball, either with current guys or former guys, just fizzled out. Why? What happened to Summer League basketball, an organized Summer League basketball league?
That's a good question, because I always heard that those games were pretty entertaining, pretty fun to watch. I never snuck over there for any of them when they were going on, whether it was back at the original OSA or they had a couple different locations throughout the run. But it just became there's all college basketball's calendar kind of grew more and more. It's that's the one perspective that I can speak on for sure. The workouts and the summer schedules kind of expanded for the college guys, and the risk of injury, that sort of thing, and people may turn their nose up at that all they want, but it became more of an actual reality for the college guys. But like you said, it was always really well attended, and there was some good hoop going on back when it was going on. So
is that, and I'm being serious when I ask this question. I know with the type of competition you're going to face in your respective conferences, especially if we're talking about Creighton players in the Big East, any other players, if you got Nebraska players involved in the Big Ten. But the way that Gary's described these, I've heard stories other than what Gary's laid out too, of how these things would get pretty knocked down and very just a lot. We'll just say a lot of alphas around where it would sometimes turn a little bit more physical than what maybe any coaches would be comfortable with. Isn't that just another way to?
Yeah, basically we had a almost a Creighton Omaha fight one year.
Yeah, yes, I remember hearing about that. Maybe that was you who told me about that. But isn't that another opportunity to kind of tap into a little bit of the competitiveness to get you a little bit, I don't know, get the blood going for the season? It's
Or less known pickup games or leagues.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. I mean, I would turn to agree. I guess it just depends on how you want your summer to be. I think the guy took in line in the last dance. I don't want to sweeten the summer up. I don't know if you want to. It depends on how hard you want to go, but it's just I guess it depends. It depends on the guy. If you want to get into an intense game like that. Once a week. On top of your summer workouts, getting to know your team and all that, more power to you, man. But I guess it's on a guy-to-guy basis.
The pictures are insane. First of all, kudos to Lincoln. What they did to the Antelope courts, they're normal. So, I may have played a lot of golf with Jim Egger because it's a nice little hole in inclusion.
I played Little League Baseball there once.
Yeah. The courts, this is what we need more of. Thank you to, I'm going to give proper credit here, to Bleacher Preachers, which is a really good follow, Bleacher Preacher 4, is keeping outdoor courts in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
The concrete is solid. We don't have holes in it or cracks in it. The hoops are good, whether it be the chain link nets or, some of the newer, Nick was alluding to, some of the newer elementary schools that are being built that have outdoor basketball courts, they actually have nice baskets.
Oh, yeah. Plexiglass breakaway rims.
So, and this YouTuber bringing, and he's got, 1.2 million people who follow him on YouTube, bringing attention to outdoor basketball. It's still a thing in this area. I hope we take care of our courts that are outside, because Josh Jones is trying to save a court here in Omaha.
Yeah, I forget. I remember hearing about that. I forget what court it is exactly. But there's definitely a wide variety of outdoor courts around the city. Some of them can use a little love, a little TLC, but then there's the newer ones that are nice. But pickup runs, and whether it's indoor or outdoor, it's part of the basketball community.
I would ask both of you guys this question because when I think of outdoor courts, as you just brought it up with the chains, outdoor court, I know most of them don't have the regular nets just because of the weather factor, but if you're playing outdoor court, you got to have a chain, right? You're not playing on an outdoor court if it has just a regular net. It's got to be a chain because there's something about being able to splash one with the chain that just has that sound. I'm sorry, that's one of the greatest parts of the outdoor court right there.
Yeah, chain net definitely greater than the double rim. That was that's one of the cons of an outdoor court.
Mm-hmm.
The one close to my childhood home had double rims, so those were the bane of my existence. But it's not that was very good anyway. So I found things to blame with the double rim.
The question should be posed: what does he like? And then when Sidney Dean chimes in, we got a good discussion with him. And then we'd have to, of course, ask Jack Harlow. Let's shift to some basketball that's played indoors. What's the career trajectory of Bryce McGowan's look like?
An excellent question. I was not expecting to see that news come across over the weekend. 2 years in, but the weirdest part was he's still playing with the summer league team for the Hornets outlet right now. He was starting for their summer league team the day he got waived, so that was quite the odd news. But that's a good question. The flashes have certainly been there for him, but there's not been very much. He's got plenty of, not plenty, but a good amount of highlight reel plays. Okay, double-digit game, but shot hasn't really been there, especially from three. Still pretty pretty good athlete. He's got some intangibles, but I mean, he was probably drafted on his upside, and 2 years in, there hasn't really been much proof of concept, I guess. And the opponents are in a good spot with a new coach, and for them to waive 3 guys that they drafted 2 years ago, that was pretty unexpected. But I'll be interested to see the next step for Bryce. There's still definitely, I think, more questions than answers with game pro level.
Okay, so a similar concept with this is when you watched him his only year in Nebraska, and you watched, again, some of it was really good. In fact, in times he was the only guy out there competing, but other moments, you can tell there was still some development that took place. Where were you when knowing that he was going to be going to the next level? He was only going to be here for a year, but also knowing that there was still work to be done. Is there a case to be made? I know this is maybe hindsight, that if you stay another year, that you have that opportunity, and if you did, would he be at Nebraska? Would he possibly go elsewhere?
Yeah, I don't know. That's good. Good hindsight. Hindsight's always 2020, but yeah, I think the development. I think as he could have used another year of development. Sure, I don't know if he would have stuck around Lincoln, but yeah, looking back on it, I think more development probably would have been pretty beneficial for him, because some of the things that we've seen, that I've seen, in small sample of seeing him play at the pro level, it's kind of the same stuff. He's not a finished product by any means, and at some point you gotta get at least closer to becoming a finished product if you want to stick in the NBA.
No Abdel Massey, no McGowans. Okay, as simple as that. But don't you think also? Well, no. I mean, he's the one that recruited him.
Mm-hmm.
They had a relationship. Don't you think also there's part of Bryce's game, and I think as you watched him, and he's what about when he started 14 games this past year for Charlotte. I think he tries to do too much offensively, and that may be the team that he played on. But like yesterday when he's playing in the summer league, I mean, he got to the free throw line. He shot it okay. Don't you think it also comes down to, in his situation, he got drafted by the wrong organization, if you're looking at what he needs?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a part of it. I don't think the Hornets are a big on player development, especially these last couple of years. And the year after he gets drafted there, he was I forget if he was a late first or early second round, but I mean, then they bring in Brandon Miller. They bring in, they're bringing in all sorts. There's going to be a new young guy who's a highly touted draft pick. It seems like every year there seems to be a revolving door. So yeah, I think that the organization that he wound up in probably played a part as well.
We learned last week Casey getting the Exhibit 10 deal with the Pacers, and then now announcing this morning that he's going to be playing the Olympics. So the summer that Casey has and how this could impact his next level as a professional, are you surprised by this, especially with the opportunity now he has with the Pacers? And ultimately, what could the Paris games do in those efforts as well?
I don't think I'm particularly surprised. I mean, an Exhibit 10 deal. I mean, it's basically a tryout deal, and it just makes it easier for a team to get you on their G League team if they like you enough to keep you around. And Casey worked out with the Pacers after, not this past season, but the season before that, when he decided to come back. He worked out with the Pacers, and he shot it really well during his workout. And I'm not surprised that one of the organizations with some Fred Hoiberg connections, liked them some Keisei Tominaga. But I think the Olympics, it'll be pretty cool for him, and I think it'll be an opportunity to have his name grow a little more. And they're in that second group. They're not in the group of death, which I'm calling Group A, with Australia and forget who else is in there. That's a pretty stacked group. They're in that second group. See how that goes. How that goes to Casey, and unrelated to Casey, we could have as many as 3 up. We got 2 for sure. We'll wait to hear on the third.
Jack McVay is really cool. Did you get to know Jack at all?
I did, yes. Spent quite a bit of time around him. He's always been a real down to earth dude. very humble. When he was kind of stuck on the end of the bench toward his time at Nebraska, still found a way to keep his head up. And he is, he's a completely different player, but it seems like he's the same dude that I got to know a little bit at Nebraska. It's going to be really cool for him to represent Australia. I got sent the video of him getting told mid-team, his reaction and the passion that he showed. That didn't surprise me at all. The dream come true for Jack, and I couldn't be more happy for him to get the opportunity to represent us.
All right, this is a 92 or 24 discussion. It's yes or no. Just choose one. In their prime, as they were playing the Olympics, Leitner, David Robinson, Ewing, Bird, Pippen, Jordan, Drexler, Malone, Stockton, Malone, Barkley, Magic, or Bam, Booker, Curry, Davis, Durant, Ant-Man, Embiid, Allen, Drew Holiday, LeBron, a healthy Kawhi, Jason Tatum. Who are you taking? In their prime, getting ready for their Olympic year. The 92 guys or the 24 guys?
That's a tough question. I'm a sucker, so I'll take the 92 team because the guard play not Steph Curry on this team doesn't worry me. But I mean, Drew Holiday, he can defend, but I think I'll still lean toward a team that I didn't even get to watch. They played 5 years before I was.
Hey, isn't this an interesting dynamic? The 92 Dream Team, unbelievable. But world basketball was garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The 24 Olympic team, that roster I just listed, unbelievable. But world basketball is so much better that, I mean, the U.S., let's don't kid ourselves. The U.S. should win gold, but their path is a lot more difficult than it was in 92. There is no Angolas out there playing in the Olympics in Paris later this month.
Yeah, I think their group stage, they definitely have the easiest group. I think they'll win apologies in advance to South Sudan and Puerto Rico, but then Serbia is the other team in that group too. But I think once they get to the quarterfinals, it'll definitely be a little more challenging than it was back then for sure. But I mean, yeah, that's just a testament to how much the game has evolved on the world stage in the 30 years since 92.
All right, have fun going down the rabbit hole of Cam Wilder's YouTube videos of pickup basketball.
Have fun with that. No, I appreciate the time. Like always, guys, have a good rest of the week.
Thank you.
Bye, Jacob.
Have you guys done the little exercise of crunch time? Your U.S. men's basketball 5 you won on the floor.
Well, I've never done the crunch time, but when you mentioned the 92 team, here's how maybe it's not fair for me to judge 2024. And again, I'm team Jordan over team LeBron. I'm team 92 over team 2024 if we're doing that. Here's another thing about the 1992 team. Now, mind you, I was relatively young. I still, 10 years later, hell, maybe even longer than that, would still see people wearing Dream Team stuff. Would still see people with posters of the Dream Team. Would still see the USA basketball T-shirts, the shorts still being worn. That thing was a cult-like following. That was as much of a rock star, a semblance of athletes in any sport that I can ever remember in my life. That if you were to throw on, say, a USA jersey right now, most people, I think, would associate that to the 92 Dream Team than they would to any current Olympic team, even this group, which is pretty damn impressive. But that, to me, was maybe one of the coolest Olympic teams that, whether you're a basketball fan or not, just a sports fan in general, that not only would you watch them, but you would own the gear, and you probably owned it for years to come. And if you ever saw something that you could be more retro with it, people always knew exactly what you were. Like, oh, sweet, you got your sporting Dream Team gear. I think it was a cult-like following.
You don't think if you walk into the outlet mall today and somebody's wearing a USA 9 jersey, it's not for Halliburton?
No, you're going to have to be like, oh, as long as it says the name on the back, though, then you're good.
No, you only see it from the front.
Nope.
You don't think, oh, man, that guy must be a big Pacer fan or he's an Iowa State fan.
No, I'm like, who's number 9 on the 92 team?
Jacob chimes back in. Jacob, I think, would like to just come in and sit in the studio. He said, put the 2012 team into a discussion. They're right up there. Here's the other thing about the comparison of the 92 to 24 team, because Curry, Tatum, Embiid, Edwards, Durant would be my closing five. I don't care who starts. I'm just worried about if they get to a crunch time in the five. Chris says, and welcome back, Chris. We must be getting closer to football. In the Equitable Bank inbox, he says, you could have stopped after Jordan. The choice is always Jordan. If it's between Jordan and anything, as long as we aren't talking the Wizard era Jordan.
I'm with him, though. Always give me, if Jordan's a part of it, but I mean, let's be honest too, though, that team, even with Christian Laettner, which was always kind of now mind you, I acknowledge how good Christian Laettner was, but the amount of dudes on that team and the type of players that they were currently in the NBA. I mean, your big man is David Robinson. God, I could still see the poster
and say from experience, it's pretty nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You had him for a while. I don't know if you'll ever have that type of following, that type of impact with what that team meant, the amount of studs. But yeah, I mean, it was MJ first and foremost was the face of that thing. But the fact that you could probably scrimmage that entire roster, and those are probably some of the most intense scrimmages that you ever had, because there's not one dude, even Christian Laettner, not one dude that you would ever put in the category of soft. Like, those guys just wanted to kick each other's ass.
I think they should have. I think they should televise. They had a scrimmage yesterday. Cooper Flagg was playing with must be the college national team or whatever, is playing against the U.S. guys. I wish they would televise those. 2012 team: Tyson Chandler, Kevin Durant, LeBron, Russell Westbrook, Darren Williams, Iguodala, Kobe, Kevin Love, James Harden, Chris Paul, Anthony Davis, and Olympic Melo. Yeah, 2012 team wasn't bad.
Do you mentioned the number 9 jersey too? It's Tyrese Haliburton. Do you think that he feels any undue pressure wearing that jersey number?
I don't know. Do you think he associates Jordan or Iguodala with wearing number 9 in the Olympics?
Probably. You're right. It's probably Iguodala. What am I thinking?
All right. We got to take a break. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. It has come to my attention. Just felt like Ron Burgundy there. Anchorman celebrated 20 years.
20?
Yeah. I mean, it might be tomorrow. The 20-year anniversary when Anchorman
It was a summer
released.
blockbuster.
What a time to be taking your TV classes in school. That was quoted like every day.
How now, brown cow?
Mhm.
Hockey Dad has a 1992
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Olympic Summer Games USA basketball hat, celebrating the championship.
Yeah, that thing is that's the logo. That's the thing is every time, and I know they use the logo for many years after, but you'd associate that logo to the Dream Team, not necessarily USA basketball, but to that particular team. July 9th. You're right.
Okay.
Good call.
It has come to my attention two things. One, you got the Google machine there. Put in Kirk Ferentz high school picture.
Okay.
I like this game. You do that with Willie Fritz one of these days.
I don't even want to know what the answer is to that
College
question.
picture, actually. Oh, he had an amazing
Oh,
mohawk.
wow.
Did you guys know
This is
my
good.
that
goodness.
Kirk Ferentz had a mullet in high school?
Yeah, see that one,
Now, Mike Gundy, that's how you do it.
but it's literally, I mean, this is his business in the front, party in the back that you can possibly get. Because if you just crop up the sides, let's see, what year would he have been in high school?
Try not to laugh. I salute the man.
But if you just cropped up the sides, it looks like that exact same hairstyle that everybody else during that era probably had. But then you widen it out and you see the puffs in the back. Oh,
I'm sure Hayden was
yes,
not a fan of this.
sir. Yeah, I guarantee he had a T-top Camaro.
See, I'm,
Guarantee.
Little REO Speedwagon.
I am so friggin' boring.
Rat.
My high school senior picture, other than a few pounds, I look exactly the same.
I mean, that's not a bad
My
thing.
hairstyle is, there's less hair, but it's kind of the same. I'm like, gosh, you think maybe like I would change it up. Maybe have a little plastic surgery or something. I got nothing.
You wanted to go the plastic surgery route, did you?
No, I don't even know what I would do. I don't think I would touch the face. Do not touch the face.
Yeah, don't touch the face.
I'm on an Anchorman.
Hands
roll
on the
here.
face. Of course. No touching of the face.
Yeah, I was running through the internet the other day, kind of like Forrest Gump.
Upper St. Clair High School.
And
That's
that
where it
was-
He's got a mullet.
He's got an Upper St. Clair hairdo.
30 years ago, 2 days ago. Was Forrest
It's also, yeah, just like Tom Cruise, who is always running in his movies. Forrest Gump was
true.
always running.
No.
Does anybody ever make that connection? Tom Cruise is always running in his movies.
Gump. Risky business, yeah.
Yeah,
He's
I
running.
mean, well, don't forget.
It's running from Guido. I know that.
All the Right Moves.
Oh, he was definitely running.
He was defensive back,
Georgievich.
although had a hands problem, remember?
Top Gun, he was running.
Yeah.
I think Jack Reacher, he was
Oh,
running.
yeah. That's all he does in Mission Impossible. He runs off buildings and stuff.
But the other thing that's come to my attention, there are some people out there, and probably people in our listening audience, maybe even some people in the studio. I don't get you people. Because I was involved in a debate this weekend that I didn't really think was a debate, that I now question humanity.
Oh, no.
There are some people out there that for some ungodly reason would choose hard ice cream over soft serve.
This is a thing?
What?
I didn't think it was a thing till someone goes, yeah, I'd rather have hard ice cream than soft serve.
Why?
And I'm like, you know
Are we
what?
still talking about ice cream?
Hey,
Why?
the immigration works both ways.
Why?
We can ship you out for a citizen to be named later.
I mean, yeah, sure. Hard ice cream, sometimes when that's the only thing available, you can make do with it. But if you're given the option, I don't know anybody in my life that would say, yeah, give me that stuff out of the.
I was just checking. I was, I was like, hey,
A little Bluebell heavy.
I'm trying to watch some Buffalo Bill film. Hey,
Trying to see how those DBs were performing.
John Butler, he got, you know what? Isn't going to be awkward. Like if this becomes official and John Butler's the new defensive back coach, he's going to have nightmares about the Nebraska quarterback.
I smell what you're cooking. Because he looks like that guy.
Looks that
We're not
guy,
talking about Mark Vlasic.
that guy that torched your secondary.
Wait, what? Oh,
It's
sorry.
It's
It's Dylan. Yeah,
quarterback of the Chiefs.
They're
His
talking
son
about,
plays for Nebraska.
Like what? When he played back in the day, there was a former Nebraska player who torched him. Yeah, that's true. But maybe there's going to be a part of that, hey, this is how he's going to make his defensive backs better because he single-handedly saw how Mahomes would go and pick apart
How to lose
his
a game in
defensive
13
backs.
seconds?
Yeah. See, I'd like to think you learn from your mistakes.
I still haven't.
Have they in Buffalo?
No. Unfortunately, they haven't. Probably a good move on his part to go ahead and get out of there.
I'm distressed about it too. Oh, that's too bad.
That
window opened and it went.
Do you think there's going to be some animosity then between John Butler and Dylan? Might just look at him and be like, oh.
I don't know, a guy who is,
might take a charge.
You've had nightmares about. You're all of a sudden going to be.
You're looking at his son?
You're going to be like, what the? I got out of the NFL to avoid guys like that. And all of a sudden I'm at a college where the friggin' quarterback looks like his son.
And you're wearing number 15.
Yeah.
They all look like
it's amazing how many people have picked up on the mannerisms. I was talking to some guys about this last week. And
of Dylan or Pat?
How Dylan has picked up on the Pat mannerisms and how he, the walk. It's kind of the
I need to wipe.
The old, yes, the ass is out. The knees are a little more pointed together.
Ran out of toilet paper. No one's here to help me.
Yeah.
John writes into the Equitable Bank inbox, Tom Cruise was not running in Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, fair point.
Well, not when he got in the house, because after he said Fidelio, you had to go in and see what was going on.
Metaphorically, was he running?
Hold on here.
Running from reality?
Hold on here. I believe that he was running to go catch a cab.
I think you're right.
Oh, hey.
John, you're wrong.
And who could forget the firm? I mean, that the entire end scene or the last half hour is him running from this guy to that guy, running from Wilford Brimley, the oatmeal guy.
I tried to run from diabetes for years. Finally got my ass.
What do you think if they did a sequel to Eyes Wide Shut, what it would look like today?
A lot of sagging, a lot of wrinkling.
Well,
Stanley Kubrick's dead.
Well, I don't think you necessarily got to recast everybody.
There's a lot just happened there, Jim.
I mean, Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise.
She still looks great.
Hey,
I'm sure she's so.
Hey, that was.
But after that, you could probably recast others.
I was in a weird phase back in '99.
We all were.
So I watched it for one reason and one reason only. I thought that was one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen to this day.
Yes.
And I really didn't get it. And I really didn't get satisfied.
I didn't either.
Sorry, Nicole.
No, I didn't either.
It did end abruptly.
There was nothing about that movie that I've seen it once in my life. And yeah, it was shortly after it came out. And I never needed to see it again.
You won't be watching it today with the little one.
There was nothing redeeming about that movie whatsoever.
That's right. You guys are bachelors.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
like,
we are.
Guess what we're watching today?
Hey, buddy,
Bachelor party.
There's a lot of Tom Cruise. Oh, see, now that would be a good one. Nah, not for him.
What?
I mean,
there's a donkey in the movie.
And there's a character named after me in that, too.
Exactly. Look at that.
I'm just not called the other part. At least not to my face. I'm just going to leave it at that. If you know, you know.
Dad, what does he mean?
Yeah, just a clever nickname that you don't ever need to repeat when you talk about Dad to any of your friends.
Hey, for people don't know, I mean, Stanley Kubrick was a genius.
Oh yeah.
The one part of that whole thing about bachelor party and Nick the Richard.
Nick the what?
The Richard.
I love how he says it.
There's a slap noise that I still can't get.
Oh
over.
Yeah. That's true.
Such a great movie.
Mr. Nick.
Then you go, that thud. Back to wrap the show after this. All right, a lot of mentions of Tropic Thunder, a movie that Tom Cruise did not run in.
I never saw that movie.
He ran his mouth a lot in that movie.
Did he? Yeah. It's an odd cast of characters in that movie. So Ben Stiller, Tom Cruise. Was Jack Black in that too?
I can't say I watched
minimal
that.
role.
Okay.
I believe.
Say Tropic Thunder. I think Jim Cantori, but
yeah. Cruise is on to this. He knows that people keep track of how many his movies and when he's running, either frontwards or backwards. But Tropic Thunder is one movie, yes, that I don't know that he has any running scenes in.
I had to bring up Jerry Maguire, but then you guys pointed out from the lunch spot when he gets fired to the office, and then from the plane once it touches down to get to his wife to give the speech. So, and those were dead sprints. So, yeah, I think you're onto something.
All the right moves. Poor clock management by Craig T. Nelson.
Yeah, and
was Craig T.
Nelson being typecast at that time? Because that would have been right before Coach started.
Before Coach, yeah.
Yeah.
He learned. He was a better coach on Coach.
Oh yeah, you don't get a college gig if you're not. Go from high school to college. And then he did offer Georgievich a scholarship at his new place when he got promoted to a college coach.
And then eventually ended up in the NFL.
Yeah. So, you know what? He turned out to be a pretty good coach. It's good to see guys learning from, their
movie mistakes.
Yeah, their movie mistakes. You're young and you're sometimes a little naive to how you got to manage a game. But
wasn't he deal with Ghost also at that time? He was in Poltergeist, right?
Yeah.
So it was a rough time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you got the Poltergeist in the house, you got to deal with that. So then you got your family life probably interfering with what you're doing on the field. Yeah, it's dealing with a lot of stuff.
Jamie loved Tropic Thunder. I mean, the cast was
it good? I mean, you guys aren't giving me a glowing review of it. You said it was really weird.
Just different.
It's comedy, right?
So let's see. Ben Stiller was in it. Robert Downey Jr. Jack Black, I guess his role was more than as Jeff Portney.
Peaches.
He was Dave's older brother. Then you had Tom Cruise was in that movie. Kenny Powers was in that movie.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Okay.
Nick Nolte was in that movie.
Nick Nolte.
McConaughey. And I think
from last week's show.
Jesus, when did this movie come out?
01, I think.
Wasn't Bill Hader in Tropic Thunder as well?
I gotta look.
Pretty incredible cast.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Oh, 08.
He was a studio executive.
Okay.
In that one.
Right.
Yeah. Gosh, you're right. Danny McBride was in that too. Jeez. Good call, guys. I want to see this now. I'm just curious. I never heard anything really good about it, though, when it came out. And I think more than anything, the way you described it is what I heard. And that was, it's different.
It's Zoolander in the tropics.
That's probably the best way to describe it.
No, I didn't
like Zoolander either.
I liked Zoolander. So I liked Zoolander for what it was. It was slapstick comedy as long as you knew going into it that it wasn't going to be like this epic generational
That's
comedy.
True.
Then as long as you knew that going in, you're going to be fine.
I thought they were going to bring back Eastbound and Down.
I did too.
They should. It's a wonderful program.
John Rocker is the real life Kenny Powers.
I mean, really was. That's pretty much what they based it off of. You have a guy who is going to say some very, very insensitive, questionable things.
As he did.
And
I learned my trains in New York through him.
Now, do we know, did John Rocker ever get relegated to getting back into
the Mexican League?
Well, yeah. Or even maybe coaching PE too.
Or selling cars?
Yeah, that's right.
Or running for office?
What was Will Ferrell's something Shelley? Oh my God. Those scenes alone, when he's talking about.
He currently works as a hunting and fishing guide in Georgia.
I felt it in my plum.
Left me hanging.
Maybe one of his sneaky better roles.
Good show, everybody.
He has a Twitter.
Good
Hashtag real Kenny Powers.
Good way to finish that one.
All right. Good discussion today on what happened over the weekend at Nebraska and moving forward. Tomorrow we'll dive into some NIL stuff because Phil Knight wants to make sure that Oregon wins a championship before he dies.
That's scary.
And people go, "What about Buffett?"
It's going to all come back to that.
Plus, we'll welcome Sam McEwen back from vacation.
Yes.
He'll join us, and he might have a thought or two. Maybe Nebraska will have a defensive back coach by the time we reconvene at 6 tomorrow. For Jimmy, for Nick, I'm Gary. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley at 1620 The Zone.